本当？見えないでしょ？どこにいるのかな？見えないよ。What's good, Internet? It's Monday, November 18th, and you're listening to Waypoint Radio, episode 280. I'm your host, Austin Walker. Joining me today, Kato in the booth.
Yo.
Happy November 18th. November's almost over. It's fucking wild. Patrick Klepek here. Hi, Patrick.
Hello. Hi.
And Rob Zachney. Rob, how are you ending the fall? How are you leading us out of autumn?
Fall is winter. What are you talking about?
It's still, this is what I mean. This is what
It's
I
still
mean.
fall. I was walking around crunching through leaves and pine needles on a farm the other day.
Farm shit. Farm shit. That's right. I was like fall shit.
Yeah.
Farm shit.
Farm shit.
Fall.
A farm in the fall. It was great.
That sounds great. You know how I spent my fall is anime. I didn't play any fucking video. Okay, I tried to play Pokemon. Okay. We got code on
Austin's
Friday.
Mediterranean climate of enthusiasm. Oh, it's anime season. Damn.
Drat. So the only video I've tried to play since on our Friday show was Pokemon Shield, which we got code for on Friday, I think. And so that is why we didn't talk about that game last week, to be 100% clear. Like we weren't just like sitting on code like, we didn't get around to playing.
We talked about it.
Y'all motherfuckers think I would actually not say shit
right?
if I had code.
And let's get to Pokemon in a little
later.
bit. Because we have some Stadia stuff and other stuff. I want to get stuff off the plate. But my fucking hoary Daemon X Machina controller that I'm holding up for the screen right now, the left stick is decalibrated, or it's tilted to the right a little bit. You know how that happens with controllers after a while? We're like, oh, the thumbstick just gets like decentered, and
Was that the famous controller drift of the Switch?
It's not. This is just a busted fucking analog stick. This is just that.
You juking and strafing too much doing those drift compatible
Yeah. That's 100% right. No, what it is that it's big. It's so big that it doesn't fit in a case. For people who don't know what the fuck I'm describing, when Daemon X Machina came out, Hori put out these different Joy-Cons that are like big. It's like holding an Xbox 360 controller, an Xbox One controller, but
attached to the side of the Switch.
I love it. It feels great to hold. It has paddles on the back too, like extra like programmable shit. I love it. But it doesn't fit in a case, which means I've just been putting it in my bag for months, and it must have just sat on the stick the wrong way. So I open up Pokemon, I'm like, why is my dude always going to the right constantly? Just like walking away from whatever I'm trying to go to. So couldn't play that this weekend while I was traveling. So instead, all I did is I went to an anime convention. I know, Kato, you went to this anime convention.
Yeah. Anime NYC.
Anime NYC happened.
Bigger than this year, than last year.
Bigger than before. I did a panel with Yoshiyuki Tomino, who created Gundam, which is wild. There's gonna be footage of that at
the whole thing.
What the whole he created the first 4 series of Gundam plus the first two movies. I guess That's the Gundam creator. Oh yeah, it's the Gundam dude. It is Mr. Gundam. It is like he is like
Gundam.
the George Lucas of Gundam. Do you know what I mean? There's a whole team, which is to say, there's a whole important team there. Sometimes he's not as good as you hope, but what an honor.
Yeah, do you have a complicated love-hate relationship with him?
Dude, absolutely.
Were you up there busting out the sweat lamp in the interrogation scene?
No, I wish I could have. There was definitely a process beforehand. Like, what are the questions? What are we doing? There was some what I will say is, we did not get much time beforehand. Like, he's a very busy dude, and we met in the morning and then had to really hook up for the event. And we did have a really nice rapport. It was really fun to poke at each other a little bit. There was a little bit of back and forth that was fun. And he's a very funny dude. One of the first questions that was why do you think Gundam has endured for 40 years? And he was like, I don't know, you tell me. And I was like, all right, shit, I didn't know that was going to come back at me. Fuck, okay, I could do this. And that was really fun. So I think there will be footage of that out at some point. I think Anime NYC filmed it, and then there was a separate film crew doing a documentary. So for people who want to see me talk to the creator of Gundam, that'll happen at some point. Kato, I know you were there also, and you played some anime game. Was that a question, Rob, or are you just stretching? I don't know.
No, that was me putting my hand up, being like,
you would like
to see you speak to the creator of Gundam.
Yeah.
That's me.
That's good. Yeah, okay. Kato did see it. Kato came out. Thank you to you, and thank you to anybody who came out to support it. I know I kind of announced it late. But Kato, what did you get up to there? Did you play some anime?
I played a bunch of anime games. They have a couple different things there. There's this one section, usually in one of the back corners, which is much larger this year, where they have a bunch of imported arcade machines, which are really cool. I actually got to play a Gundam game there because they had
Versus.
Yeah, it was Extreme versus Maxi Boost on.
Oh, Maxi Boost on. I have not played on yet.
Which was I got fucking washed.
Yeah, dog. That game's hard.
There was
people who play those games are good.
Yeah, no, there was a streamer in the other seat. I took one stock, one life.
Okay, nice.
That was it, and then I got completely fucking washed. That game's fun though.
That game's really fun. There's a PS3, there's a PS4 version of like Versus, which is the newest version of Versus.
Yeah.
But the most recent PS3 builds are the ones that people tend to play competitively.
Right.
And they're good. They're actually bad for streaming because they move so fast.
Right.
Like it's hard to get a bit rate that can keep up.
Yeah,
it's great.
It was a really fun game. But I played 3 other games there that are like actually stuff that's coming out. 2 3D fighters, one based off of My Hero Academia and one based off of One Punch Man.
Okay.
The One Hero Academia one is a sequel to one that came out last year called One My Hero One's Justice. This is My Hero One's Justice 2.
Great title. My Hero One's Justice
2.
Yeah. My Hero One's Justice.
No.
2. My Hero One's.
My Hero One's Justice is all. There's no colons anywhere in this thing.
Huh.
It doesn't make any sense. I don't understand what that title is trying to say.
Interesting. Okay.
Well, because it's My Hero Academia, but it's just My Hero One's. Yeah, it's one. It's all one weird. Okay. Long.
Okay.
Title.
Anyway,
it's a 3D anime fighter.
Yeah, like behind the back type thing.
Yeah,
okay.
the kind of thing that you expect out of that. It looked really good, but I think it was running on PS on Pros and. It was framey as all hell. They were going for a very stylized thing.
It looks like anime,
type thing, and it looked really good. But it was also like the second there were more than like 2 effects going on, it was framey as all hell.
And it's an anime fighter, so there's always
shit
effects.
going off. Yeah. Otherwise, though, like the couple of characters I played and stuff, like it seems like they've done a really good job of capturing those characters. I watched that series, I enjoy it. So if they figure that out, it feels like it'll be a okay one of those, right?
Yeah.
Like it's mostly like the whole you have to be interested in the series already because it's like, oh, this is cool that I can do. It's kind of
doing the thing from the show.
Yeah.
I've played anime games before.
Right. The One Punch Man was similar, but I was interested in that because the whole thing with him is that he's the one-hit kill, basically.
Right.
So what was funny about that one was that it's a not exactly it's a team fighter. I couldn't figure there wasn't like a way to tag people in and out. It was more like people were lined up.
Like King of Fighters, or like you knock someone out, the next person comes in.
Yeah,
okay.
And also a 3D fighter. But you could only pick Saitama, One Punch Man, as the 3rd character.
Huh.
And what would happen is on screen during the fight, there's like a little live feed of a camera feed of him like jogging, like to get to the battle.
That's very funny.
Because like you can't start.
Very funny.
Yeah, it's very like on theme for like him always kind of showing up late to things and like being unaware of what's going on.
Huh.
So it's like it looks like he's just kind of out for a jog, and then he's like notices that there's a fight going on and like starts to speed up to try to get there to help.
Good. If you lose your first 2 characters before he gets there, do you lose?
You lose, yeah.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. So
That's
like there's
goofy.
like a timer where you're like if someone's picked Saitama as their 3rd, you got to try to beat them before then. If not, he comes out and it's one hit.
Oh wow!
Like actually one hit.
Okay.
So the person that I was playing, we both picked Saitama as our 3rd, which got into a very funny thing where like I got Saitama first. I knocked out his 2 characters like split second as his timer ran out. And so that was both Saitamas, and turned into the fight from the last Matrix, where there's like fucking like like ripples of destruction happening everywhere.
Because they're both that powerful.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
That's very cool.
So that was fun.
That's
that was
a very cool mechanic.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, thank you for reporting in from the front lines of anime. That's a convention. It was Gundam Day.
Gundam Day.
Oh my god! I'm gonna just tell
New York Gundam Day.
There was a New York New York City councilor at the opening of Gundam. Not the opening of Gundam. The opening of Anime NYC. The opening of Anime NYC, like the grand opening moment, was the creator of Gundam next to the city councilman next to the dude who like runs Anime NYC next to three cat boys from Grand Blue, like in cosplay.
Yep.
And the two things that the city councilor did, one, he. So do you remember, Patrick, I made you watch that episode of Gundam where for the thing, and I mentioned at Seattle that despite the show taking place in Seattle, because you can see it's the Seattle Superdome. Is that the Seattle Dome? Am I getting that confused? Whatever the dome is in Seattle.
Know.
Yeah. They called it New York in the show. The city councilor gave Tom. Okay, you might remember also, Patrick, that the name of the villains in that were the villains. The antagonistic force were Xeon. It's complicated.
Don't want to be too reductive and call them villains.
It's complicated. Xeon we're not going to get into it. We're not going to get a movement for sovereignty was co-opted by fascists is really the truth. Anyway, as happens sometimes. They're called Xeon, and the city councilor said, "We're giving you an award to commend you for saving New York from the forces of Zion in episode 10, Garma's Fate." And I was like, excuse me? Okay. The second thing is the city councilor asked the crowd, what's better, Gundam or Evangelion? And the crowd, which is like, don't do that standing next to the dude who made Gundam. Like, don't open the door. And then thankfully the crowd was like, Gundam, which like, okay. And then he says, that's probably the right answer, but I watched Ava first. And it's like, anyway, it's Gundam Day. Happy anime. So, I don't know.
These aren't my mechs, but I guess they're all right.
But I guess they're all right.
They did save New York
from Zion. From Zionists. What is happening?
My chief of staff is motioning frantically for some reason.
You just got confused and thought that Gundam took place in the Matrix universe.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that's Zion.
That's Zion.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Gotta shut that Zion down.
They shut the thing. Too many raids
Clear villains
in the Matrix Zion. Get the fuck out of here. All right. We got our animation out of the way. Patrick, I need you to put us back on track and talk about something that really, truly matters. Google Stadia.
It's getting an anime. It's getting an anime game before the end of the year. It's getting one of those Dragon Balls.
Oh, is it getting a Dragon Ball?
Which Dragon Ball?
Is it getting? Oh, it's getting a because they're fighting
Xenoverse.
Patrick fucking knows.
Xenoverse, is that a thing?
There's Xenoverse. Yeah,
Xenoverse is a thing.
Xenoverse 2, right? That's right?
That's not the good one. That's not the one people like.
No, it's not.
People like Fighter Z. Fighters
is the good.
Xenoverse is the more like open worldy type game, right? Or at least it's more of an
People
adventure
don't hate those
game,
games.
yeah.
I played the first one. The first one was pretty good. Anyway, Google Stadia.
Yeah.
Google's new
Google
streaming console.
Yeah, new game streaming thing. Yeah, I mean, I guess. I mean, it's sort of a
cloud
kind of
console.
a console.
Cloud.
Yeah,
cloud service.
Formally launches tomorrow, but I've had access to it for about a week or so, and then by the time this goes up, there'll be a piece on the site that Rob and I discussed whether it was a review or not, but felt unfair to label it a review when it's like a service that like who knows what it'll be like when it's out tomorrow with lots of people. And it's a service in which it had 11 games it was launching with, and then a magic press release shows up on Sunday night and says it has 22 games that are launching with it.
Oh, wow.
Because it sounds like Red Dead Redemption 2 got finalized, and then a bunch of other games suddenly got finalized. Right
almost as if they were log jammed.
Yeah. So yeah, I like there is a big industry sort of like movement happening towards the notion of streaming games being like a big part of what we're doing in the next 5 years, and Google is taking their pitch is like, all right, get rid of the the console entirely, don't have where you have like local games and games you can stream. Like, what if you just get rid of that box entirely and you can just stream wherever, whenever? That's complicated by the requirement of a Chromecast Ultra in order to play it on a TV currently, but I think that stuff like that is supposed to get smoothed out in 2020.
It's also just right now. It's only the Chromecast Ultras you buy as part of the Stadia thing. It's not just
but that
right?
like that's
will that change and then
it will be.
this
It will
year?
be. That's just that's a firmware update that's coming in like presumably even this week.
Okay,
But
good.
but if you own a Chromecast Ultra and you just wanted to play it like right away, like it's not going to work till that firmware update rolls out. But yeah, that'll come with time.
Okay.
So the basic pitch, like what I kind of put in my piece was that like there are times, like especially I spent a lot of time in Wisconsin at this little lake house that my parents bought some years back, and like there are a lot of times where like everyone goes to sleep. My wife's asleep, my daughter's asleep, the whole family's asleep, but it's like 11. It's like I should go to bed, but like I like to play a game for an hour. And at times I've brought up consoles. At times one time when I was really into XCOM 2, like I dragged my whole fucking PC with a monitor, which ridiculous. Like but I wanted to play it, and it's like that's absurd. Like it seems like there's should be a better way to do these things, and it's like Stadia presents like one answer to that problem, which is that just open up your laptop and like connect a controller and like just pick up where you left off. And so I think like talking about Stadia is really complicated. There's a lot that goes into it. I think my general takeaway was that it's a terrible service that no one should sign up for quite yet, for lots of reasons we can get into. But like on a technical front, like on the basic pitch, you strip away all like the more easily solvable stuff, like more games. Of course, that's not hard.
Right.
Like fixing how the friends work and screenshots are shared and controller syncing, like that stuff is eminently workable. But there were multiple times where I was able to bounce around the house, go to a Starbucks, and like play games like Mortal Kombat 11, Destiny 2, Red Dead Redemption 2. And you can play it on any, they provided a Pixel phone because it's not on iOS yet. That's coming next year.
Right.
And it worked fine. It played on a laptop fine. It played on a TV fine. I want to say up front that I'm not particularly. Look, you can draw a through line of my drinking Costco brand scotch to also like my tolerance for things like frame rate resolution.
Yeah.
It just doesn't
it just
doesn't bother me. I in the same way that I will pay for things cheaper and deal with it, I also prefer convenience above all else. Now that's accelerated in like a world where I'm a parent and it's just like it's just easier to have things just work, even if it's not optimal. But playing like Destiny 2 on I have like a 60-inch TV upstairs. I set up my Stadia in the room or the Chromecast Ultra, not on my projector, but I set it up on, which I fixed that this weekend, and that was its own journey.
Yeah.
But I tried to when Google sent it to me, they said, hey, you should connect the Chromecast Ultra to to an Ethernet cable and make sure it's got so you can get the most optimal settings. And I was like, fuck that. That's not my interest in this device. Digital Foundry, other places will there are places that are going to do how to get the best out of this. And I was like, that doesn't seem to be what their pitch is in a dream
you
scenario.
Can do this
anywhere at any time.
Yep.
You can play video games, which isn't actually true, but that's the dream, right? So I'm going to treat it that way. I'm going to treat it if you handed me this technology, here's how I would actually deploy it. And so I did it in 3 ways. One was to put the Chromecast Ultra up upstairs, and
is that why
not connect an Ethernet?
Right.
It was over Wi-Fi,
yeah.
And so I mean, yes, theoretically, I could plug a cable into my router down here, which is in my office, and thread it upstairs. But my wife's gonna trip over that. Even in the best case scenario, where I used things to run it against the wall.
Yeah.
You've got a big black cable running against the wall in the house. It would just be absolutely silly.
It's also just good to test it that way because so many people are going to use it that way who don't have the ability to run a cable across their living room or whatever, You're
just going to plug it into your TV and it's supposed to just work. And so for my networking setup, I used to have a pretty typical Netgear router that didn't reach our bedroom. We have a split level house and it's not that far, but whatever material is in this house is the kind of material that just wrecks networking signals where it was in our bed, we'd be flipping to the mobile, LTE, because it couldn't pull anything up on the Wi-Fi, even though it was technically connected.
Right.
So like a month ago, I asked Will Smith, I was like, yo, what do I buy to fix this? And he gave me a bunch of he's like, there's a more complicated stuff you could do for the best possible scenario, or you could just go buy this Orbi mesh network and you just put 2 big tubes in your house and it'll fix it. So I paid $300 to buy the big tubes, and I put one upstairs, one downstairs, and it works great. It gets solid internet all throughout the house, fixed my problem. So that's the network, that's the internet that I'm using to power around the house. And so I plugged that upstairs, and it's harder. The setup process is a little weird because I jump through different hoops than you will jump through if you're someone that's going to sign up for the service normally. So I'm going to kind of skip over that part. But it seems to just work where you sign up on your phone and then you sync a controller, and that controller puts a arrow key and some button combination on the screen, which is that communicates then to the TV. Hey, I'm talking to this TV. I will communicate with this TV. That's easy enough. And then you get your slate of games on the TV. You hit play and it loads up. And so I played, several hours of Destiny 2 where, I went to the Bungie site, connected my Stadia account. Boom, there's all my characters. So I played my Hunter, played through a couple of missions. And I can't reasonably tell the difference. I can. When you go into a dark scene, what's killer for Stadia, what's killer for streaming in general is the color black.
Yeah.
Just dark scenes in general are tough. I should say I was also playing over 1080p. I was not doing 4K. I don't have a 4K monitor, so everything was coming in through that setting. So there were scenes I was doing some Hive mission in the Red War campaign, and so I was in tunnels, and it's I could see some compression, or you could just see the blocky, splotchy nature that kind of happens with streaming. Imagine when you lose a connection or it gets kind of blurry, that was specifically happening a lot in the blacks. But this was really problematic in the opening scene of Red Dead Redemption 2, which is supposed to, meant to be a real showcase for Stadia, because it's hey, play a high-end PC game and just do it through the internet.
Right.
And that game opens in a very dark a blizzard, and was just not particularly kind to what it was doing, but it is eminently playable. I should say, it is splotchy in stretches, but you could still play it absolutely fine. And I think if you were to show an average person,
can you say,
I don't know that they would know the difference.
Right. So what you're saying is input lag, latency, that stuff, totally fine. You don't. At
least to my mind, so what was frustrating for me to try and measure that was that there's no platformer. And so the thing that I consider myself to be,
you have the feel
to truly understand, I can sit and tell you, I know how my fingers are supposed to do this. So a Super Meat Boy would have been great, because then I could truly tell you, I can't say on Mortal Kombat, in Mortal Kombat 11, I can say that I played 3 to 4 hours of the story, and at no point was when I messed up a move, did it feel as though it was any input lag's fault. It always felt like I'm not very good at these games, and I just kind of bumble my way through them. But
if you're in that scene, you might be able to feel one way or the other, oh wow, this is really tight.
I don't.
You would know
if that's true, but I have to leave open the possibility because I can't speak to it.
Yeah, I'm just saying that you would know enough to say yes, this feels good, or no, it doesn't. But as is, you just don't have the expertise on that, or that familiarity with the actual that genre.
Yeah, and I saw Jeff Gerstmann, who was someone else who was playing it. He mentioned playing Mortal Kombat. It was it works kind of fine. I don't know that you want to enter a tournament with it, which is
right.
I also think that is that should be your expectation with Stadia in general. Mm-hmm. But on that level, it absolutely works. And I was able to jump between devices just fine. I was able to go to Starbucks and it worked just fine there. The hard test that I did was at Starbucks. I wondered, well, they're not recommending you do this over a mobile network. Once 5G is around, which will be faster than most people's home internet, this will be a different story. But the vast majority of people are on regular LTE. And so I was at the Starbucks. So I tried the Starbucks Wi-Fi. It worked perfectly on my laptop, worked perfectly on the phone, was just as playable as it was at home. And then I looked at my phone. And so the Google, the Pixel phone they sent didn't have a SIM card, and so I had to tether from my phone to another phone, and then also from my phone to a laptop. So I don't know if that creates any compromise in the network. I don't know, again, enough how that stuff works, but it was the only setup that I had. And I looked at the phone and it said 1 bar of LTE. And I was like, well, if I'm going to stay committed to the whole bit, it's like, this isn't the ideal scenario, but this is like, oh, I could be in the car.
Right,
I'm just going to load up Stadia on my phone,
Yep.
plug in the controller, and play. So like, I need to see how this operates, because this would be a scenario where like you're in the backseat of a long car ride. Wouldn't it be cool to play Mortal Kombat 11 or whatever? And that was a nightmare. Just for like the... Let me pull up the specifics on what the internet was.
Was this?
So
Are you using a
for that one.
controller here? Are you just playing the? Okay. I wasn't sure what your
I'm using the
setup was.
Google controller.
Okay.
On phones and laptops at launch, you can connect a DualShock, or you can just connect Bluetooth controllers.
Okay.
I think they have like a support, like, you know, document of what everything they're like natively supporting, but you can use an Xbox One, you can use a PS4 on a laptop or PC or tablet. You cannot use it on a TV yet. That support is coming later. The only thing that works on TV is Google's controller. So when I connected to LTE, it was 2 up and 14 down. And so just not a very strong connection in general. And so like if the game's connected, I was able to like load a fight in Mortal Kombat 11, and then it shit the bed. Like the controller stopped responding. Destiny 2, like I was able to get some shots off, but like, you know, the analog stick would like just stop and it would just like spin me around. So it didn't really, you know, big shock. It doesn't particularly work well on a poor connection, which is not, I don't consider that a ding against Stadia as much as it was just like trying to see how far can you take the promise and like where do you hit the limitations relative to what I think an average person would consider to be, you know, a scenario where they would want to potentially.
Right, that's a scenario where even someone who doesn't play a lot of video games who's like, oh yeah, I got this Stadia thing on my phone, would be like, well, can't do it now. This is busted. Like versus the like the bad like artifacting in black, you know, parts of the screen. A lot of folks would see that and go like, okay, I'm still playing Red Dead Redemption, no big deal, right? Like actually breaking down with bad LTE is the point at which even an average player would step back and be like, all right, I'm going to do something else with my time. But it's also
the amount of people I know that watch movies through like pirated services in which they're okay watching like a shaky cam just because they don't want to go to the movie theater. Like just suggest to me there's a broader audience of people whose like expectations for like what a thing is going to look like as long as they can just do the thing is a little bit different than how things are often framed for like hardcore video game players who want control, the best of the best. And that's just, I don't know
if a week before,
that doesn't necessarily translate to the audience that Google is theoretically pitching to of people is like that they'd be okay with a little fuzziness in a dark scene.
If a week before GTA 5 came out, the people I knew could go to the Subway, either the Subway sandwich shop or the Subway transit station and get for $10 less a handycam version of GTA 5, they absolutely would have. They absolutely would have like, oh yeah, what do you got? Yeah, let me take GTA 5 and that Hancock DVD. Done. Absolutely done. You're right.
I went into one of my brother's friend's place. They were watching Us, and I was like, "This? How can you?" I mean, the movie had come out like a week ago. I was like, "How can you watch it this way?" He's like, "Bro, it's free." I was like, "I know, but like, I see the person tilting the camera, like they're okay, whatever." But like stuff like that, like I try to keep in mind, like knowing that it's probably more common than we give it credit for.
Yeah, I'm curious. I'm curious what that crossover ends up looking like for the Stadia audience, because it's such a niche thing in some, like the promise is that it's not niche.
I don't know what the audience is, right? They're not marketing this.
So we asked your audience we asked your Twitter followers for questions, and one of the biggest recurring ones was just like, who is this for? Who wants this right now? Also, one of the best versions of that question was, is it the military? Is this all just Google proving to the U.S. military that it can do streaming this well? Is this just a show off? Which is a very funny and probably, based in something comment. Shouts to Alan for asking. But who is the audience? Who is the demographic?
I don't know. I think this is more of a proof of concept. I think there's a reason they've downplayed the launch. I think there's a reason that there hasn't been like a big marketing push. There's been like no, people equivalent of people standing in line at a New York City Best Buy and like Phil Harrison shaking hands. Whether this was the plan all along or became the plan as things like went along. This feels like a proof of concept. This feels like early access. This feels like a beta. I mean, you know, again, like in no world should there have been a launch lineup that doubled, including a marquee game like Red Dead Redemption, days before the launch. Like, it speaks to a service coming in extremely hot. And it's like, I don't even want this service necessarily. I just think the tech is really fascinating and it works. It makes me excited for this technology in different forms, right? Like, what I want is if I show up to my parents' lake house in Wisconsin and I could pay Valve $3 to turn on cloud streaming, and I could just like start, you know, playing, you know, an instant, instead of streaming from my PC and having it like link out from my PC, come to the home network there, then come to my laptop. If I could just have them spin up a PC and it grabs my cloud save and I could just play off one of their high-end PCs and I just pay a couple bucks for the convenience, like, that's what I want. It's Microsoft announcing that every game on Game Pass going forward is going to have streaming. Like, what I found impressive about this was so much less to do with Stadia as much as because the service is just not there, right? Like, it's you can't use, you know.
Yeah, can you talk about that a little bit more? Because the way you sold us up top was like, don't buy this, and then you basically said it works. So how bad could that service be? Like, what are the failings there that would make you warn people away from it so vociferously?
Well, it's just there's just not that much to play. You know, it has one exclusive, Guilt, which is a adventure game.
Is that what you feel when you spend a lot of money on Google Stadia? Is that the exclusive?
Yeah, GLYT, and it comes from Tequila Works. They did Rhyme and what was that puzzle game that people really liked? Because I know people really liked that game.
The Sexy Brutale. The Sexy Brutale.
Yes. And it's like a totally fine, like, you know, you play this little girl and it's a spooky, you're sneaking around spooky areas. Like, it's whatever. Like, there's nothing special about it, but it's like not a terrible way to spend a couple of hours. Like, it's fine enough, but that's the only exclusive here at launch. It's, a game that is primarily set in the dark, which is a problem for streaming. Like, the TV upstairs is set to have its brightness higher up. I remember doing it for some reason, and it just sort of like stayed that way. Because we don't actually watch a lot of like movies up there, so it doesn't matter to me that like it looks a little off. But like that, like deeply exposed like a game that was set in darkness, where I was like, I need to turn the brightness down here so this can look a little bit better. Because there'd be times where like I'd be walking around the corner hiding from some monsters, and it's just like the whole screen was artifacts. Again, you can see everything, but it's just the illusion is shattered. You know, of you playing like this game, and it's not on a box, you know, right in front of you. There's it's small things like you can't purchase games through the TV interface, which I think the laptop and phone interface is for a lot of people going to be like secondary and tertiary. And it's like the cool thing is like, oh, I can connect this to my TV or TVs around the house, and, you know, buying a Chromecast Ultra for $50 or whatever is a lot cheaper than buying consoles, and they can do other things. And, you know, you can't connect a controller, you know, other than, you know, Google's one, which is just okay. I don't have like strong feelings on the controller. The D-pad seems bad, but all D-pads on like most of these, like D-pads are just something that like game companies have stopped really investing in doing well, period. You basically need to buy like your own specific stuff if like a good D-pad means a lot to you. I think the Xbox Elite D-pad is okay, but D-pads are just something that have gone by the wayside as like 3D has taken over. So I don't hold that against the Stadia controller that much, although the triggers are extremely big and kind of unwieldy. And I can't tell if that's just my fingers or it's just not. It just doesn't. I don't know. And so I don't dislike it, but I don't. You know, if I could tomorrow wake up and just connect a DualShock instead, I'd probably just do that or an Xbox controller instead of using Google's, because the what are the whole hooks of the Stadia controller is like, oh, you have a Google Assistant built into this, so you can ask it like, hey, hey, blah blah blah. Like, I almost just set off everyone's devices. Sorry. hey, dingus, like, go do this, go look this up. That's not there. It's not there at launch. You could it's that mic is there. That assistant is built in theoretically, but not turned on. You can't buy games through the TV. You have to do it through the website, or you have to do it through the phone. A lot of small stuff like that. It'll get fixed. Those are things that I'm sure that those people in that AMA were like, yeah, we know. Yeah, don't worry. No one has to remind us that shit's not there. And it just feels so woefully incomplete in that regard, where when they're asking people to pay like whatever it is, like $130, and even the games themselves are not that cheap. Let me pull up. They sent over the pricing for a bunch of the stuff, right? So Assassin's Creed Odyssey is straight up $60 unless if you have Stadia Pro, it's $30. That's a decent deal. Red Dead Redemption 2, $60. Samurai Showdown, $60. Like Shadow of the Tomb Raider, $60. Like a lot of these games have deals, like Tomb Raider 2013, $20 or $10 with Stadia Pro. Final Fantasy 15, $40 or $30 with Stadia Pro. And I don't know who wants to buy a $60 game on here. I think the better sell would have been them to really load up Stadia Pro with like a bunch of interesting releases and like make the subscription compelling. Because right now there's nothing compelling about a subscription that gives you modest like deals and then a copy of Destiny 2 that is disconnected from all the other versions of Destiny.
Also, isn't Destiny 2 free to play at this point?
Yeah, but I think, do you get Shadowkeep?
Yeah, they're...
Okay. But that's so small. That game is so huge. There's so much free Destiny 2 on every other platform at this point. Yeah. I'm not moved by the inclusion of the latest expansion as like...
it's like $30 anyways.
Yeah. Anyway, I get what you're saying.
So yeah. So it's a thing where in 6 months I could see them. Once a lot of the stuff gets, sort of like ironed out. Like okay, wait for your announcements that like make the subscription more compelling to when you want to start pointing people towards it, and you spend the holiday season just getting people who I want to try out the new tech. I just want to see what it is. So it's like it's a service that you should go in if you're at all like curious about it, like just eyes wide open in like what you're getting into. I just don't think there's a lot of there's almost no justification for the $130 package, and you should stick to, the TV and phone stuff if you just want to like, spend $30 to like see how it works and like fulfill a curiosity. But I have really hard time recommending that to anyone. It's cool, it works, but I feel like you can just take someone's word for that and then just see how this pans out.
Yeah. Rob, did you have something before? It looked like you maybe wanted to jump in with a thing.
No, it's one of those things I have a curiosity, but it's tangential, and I'm not sure I should raise it.
Okay. You sit on that. You let me know if you want to change your mind. While you're sitting on that curiosity, I do have some more rapid fire questions I'm going to hit you with from people who responded. Lewis Williams wants to know, are the load times significantly shorter? That's like one of the promises here theoretically is, hey, it's spinning up a really fast computer. So you load up Red Dead. Does that opening load blow by?
It loads fast. It's not gone. It's not. This is not the promise of the PS5 and the next Xbox where they're saying maybe we say goodbye to loading times, because I also think that requires like architectural changes to how games are programmed. Right. So maybe that comes as like a gift to Stadia as other games implement that stuff. But the load times are fast, but they're not gone.
Jeff Grubb wants to know, how embarrassed would you be to use a gamepad clamp and phone to play in public? Which is like a joke, but it's also kind of real. Like, what is that? How did you play in Starbucks when you were playing in Starbucks? So it was just a phone on the table, or?
Yeah, so it comes with this like stand that you could like put the phone on top of, which I quickly realized is basically a requirement, because right now the controller does not connect wirelessly to the phone. So I believe that is also coming later, but right now it doesn't. So you have to connect it through a USB-C cable, and the one they sent me, I guess I could have replaced it at some point. I guess maybe the one on my MacBook would have been a little bit longer, but it would have still been unwieldy. But basically, like, you have this cable you've connected the phone to and then you're setting you have the controller in your hand, and there was no way to do it on my lap. I was like trying to think of an ideal scenario. I was like, oh, like my daughter's watching Disney Plus, and like I'm gonna sit here with the phone on my lap, and I'll connect the controller. And it's just like there was no way to shift my legs around to even make that work.
Yeah.
And at a table, when you have the cable connected, I couldn't get it to stand up. Like it just didn't work. Like so, you'd have to use the stand in order to make it function. Like that'd be a little less like. Well, before I should say, like, I don't easily get embarrassed about that sort of shit. It's like I walk around with AirPods, so it's like I've walked off the map in terms of like looking goofy with devices hanging off my head. So I don't really get that sort of like like external shame over that. But you would be able to get rid of some of it once the wireless is there, because then you would just have like a phone that you could like prop up against anything, and you could just have like the controller like under a table. But I found the phone stuff to be interesting on a theoretical level, but like not particularly practical, especially when the controller's not wireless. I don't know if it had like on Steam, if you stream a game to your phone, it has built-in touch controls that are terrible. You shouldn't use them.
Yeah, but
like
there.
It has like they're there and like are I guess hypothetically playable if you're playing like a roguelike or something that is turn-based, where you could make do. I don't know if Stadia does that. I always just loaded it with controller because the whole pitch of it is that you're playing full-fledged, games on this thing, so you would want a controller attached.
Yeah. This one comes from Jacob, who says, "How much extra is it costing you on data cap alone? Have you tracked
so
that
I
stuff?
did. I thought about a way to try and track that, and decided just to punt it to people who would be able to do it better than me, because the way Comcast reports data, you can't break it down by source. So there is like apps you can download on Windows where it'll track like the input output that is happening on the network. So I theoretically could have like set up Destiny 2 and just had it like sit on an idle screen for.
But this segment did open with you describing your mesh network as the tube network. So yeah, I think safe to say like Patrick's estimates of bandwidth consumption probably would have been iffy.
Also, I dumped it in the bucket of the service being shoddy. Like I'm not that concerned. Like the data cap is a huge concern. Like it's an existential question about how we do this. But like my whole approach to it was not. I was like, there will be other people that inform me better. I mean, I will say like in the app itself, so you can control. There are a couple of sort of like layers that you can do to manage the way like resolution and stuff is handled. Like you don't get a bunch of customizability. Like you go into the settings option of any game, you're not getting like chances to mess around with that stuff within the game itself. That is all being whatever is pre-built into the game is what the game is spitting out. You have like a 4K option that is. Let me see what I think I wrote down what all of them were. Oh, I actually have the app in front of me. I'll just open it up. Because it lays out like what you can expect from data usage. Yeah, data usage and performance. Yeah, so there's 3 options. You have best visual quality. Play with high quality graphics up to 4K resolution. Data usage might reach 20 gigabytes an hour. Stadia Pro only. So you need to be signing up for the subscription to even get the 4K stuff. Balanced. Let Stadia determine the best experience based on your internet connection. They don't give you an estimate based on that. Limited data usage. Limit your data usage to 4.5 gigs an hour, so they'll cap it. Visual quality will also be capped at 720p. One of the things I wish, I know they don't want to talk about this because the way they've talked around it, the entire lead up to launch, like post announcement, was to just pretend that like data caps will just figure themselves out, which is not the way that works. I mean, like if we had like a functional Congress, like regulation could be passed where it did figure itself out, but that's I don't expect
right. Yeah.
But I wish in the app you could track it. Like, hey, we'll just track it for you, and you can just figure out what's best for like the app, like the service. It presents itself. Even it goes far enough to include like how much it's going to eat per hour, but doesn't give you any options to manage that. Like if there's a low cost, low data option that says like, hey, we'll just straight up cap what goes out at 4.5 gigs an hour. Like, I don't know if I wish there was a slider, but I do wish there were options that told me like, hey, in your session today, here's what Stadia ate up. Now, I understand why they don't do that because it's like in some level a bad look, but I really wish it surfaced information so that you could be better equipped to understand that, because it is the case that in most unless you are a single person, like single apartment in which you are the only person eating network traffic, like it's just going to be hard to fully digest. Like if you've got multiple Netflix streams, it's just in a full household where people are eating up things at all sorts of devices. I know Google can track what Stadia is eating up, and I just wish it would actually tell you. But for what it actually did on my side, I don't know. But my guess is that'll be the focus of some pieces that will illuminate that better than I ever could.
Yeah. I know you didn't get a lot of phone time with it, but like, how is text readability? Asks someone on your Twitter, because I know that's been a recurring conversation. This fall with a bunch of different games, and without like a lot of options there. I'm curious.
Yeah, I didn't. I admittedly did not take like super close, but also most of the games I was playing didn't have a lot of dialogue that was going. Like I wasn't really paying attention to the text size of Mortal Kombat 11 or even Destiny 2, truth be told. And I only played Red Dead on a TV where it didn't matter as much. But I have to double check. But I didn't get the impression that Stadia has necessarily made a priority that, because you might be playing on a very small screen, we're going to make sure that accessibility functionality is doubled up as a result of that. I think it may be the case, and again, I can amend this and check it later, but I think it's more like Stadia expects if you're playing on a phone, like that text is going to be smaller, as opposed to like accommodating in a different direction.
Did you get around to playing any multiplayer things?
No, unless you count playing Just Dance 2020 with my daughter, playing Baby Shark, in which she wanted to hold the phone, but I was like, you don't understand what's going on here. You're not going to earn those points. Leave that in Dada's hands, Jessica.
Is there like a whole friends list type situation? There must be.
There is. Jeff Gersman is my friend. He in real life,
congrats.
and in thank you. And he was the one person I added on Stadia. I didn't mess with any of that stuff.
How people, like, as a corollary to this, people wanted to know about like privacy stuff. Like, you have to put in an email address. You couldn't see Jeff's email address or anything when you friended him, right?
No, the way the friends thing worked was just I can pull up the interface now because you can only do it on the phone, probably the website.
Okay.
Let's see, friends, one friend. Oh, friend request from Jeff Grubb.
Oh wow.
Recently, I played with Bunny. So
who?
When you're searching,
who's Bunny?
I don't know. You know what? Honestly, I'm going to take a stab in the dark. I bet that might be Mike Fahey at Kotaku, because I think he goes by like Bunny Spatial and a bunch of different things.
It says Jeff Grubb played with Bunny. You didn't play with Bunny.
I played with Bunny.
Wait, so
I must have played with him.
Do a multiplayer game.
When would that have even been?
Destiny?
Mortal Kombat. Destiny. It's possible that at some point in Destiny, in me like jumping into the matchmaking, I never actually got to play a game. They had sessions set up, but I didn't. Maybe I got like briefly put in the queue where it's like trying to find players, and then I quit out because it was like 1 of 13, and we weren't getting there. So when you search,
what did you play? You played like a regular mission in Destiny, right?
Yeah.
If you're ever in a patrol zone, you're getting connected to random people.
Oh, that's probably actually it then. That's probably actually what happened. So yeah, you just search for like Stadia name. You don't, and it has a like Discord style naming system. So it's like you have visual like display name, but like what's actually like undergirding that is like a code. That,
right.
So like you could have like multiple Patricks or Jeffs, and then they're differentiated by the number that comes after it. In terms of like privacy stuff, let's see what friends and privacy says in the section here.
Doing it live.
A lot of this is like the real standard, like who can see what you're doing, whether that's like all players, friends of friends. You can, on a game by game basis, give games access to your friends list. Like I have a bunch of different like sliders I can turn off and on here. But if the question is like probably more rooted in like I'm scared of Google, there's nothing here that's like gonna let you drill down more specifically than beyond what you should expect from other other platforms and kind of the granularity they give you there.
Yeah, that's the gist of what it was. A lot of people asking stuff that I don't know we've already covered or that you wouldn't know yet anyway. So we'll check in. I think people can continue to kind of shoot questions your way over the coming weeks. I think as the service unfolds, we'll have a better idea.
Just real quick, what's your up down at home?
I have that. Hold on, let me pull it up. So like actually I could have. The up down at Starbucks was 36 down, 7 up, and I think the baseline for 1080p they say is 20, and then the baseline for like 720p is like 10 or something like that. But if you're out there, I don't know that you're going to be having like a very good time playing it. My up down at home is 161 down and 12 up. So like a pretty decent connection all told. It's just even the minimum for 1080 is supposed to be 20. So that was one. I did the test of 161 off my I brought my laptop as close to my TV as possible, and then just like assumed that would do like a relatively similar sort of up down test, even though obviously there's different networking equipment in that versus the Chromecast Ultra, but that at least gave me a sense. It was similar on my phone, so I assumed it was at least somewhat applicable to what was happening there. So it was a cool when it was working, and like I can imagine myself using it. I just don't know that I'd be using it to play any of these games, but it was genuinely fucking cool to just like hold this hold the start button on the controller, the interface comes up. It'd be even nicer if you have a more modern TV. Like my TV's 6 years old, 7 years old, and so it doesn't have like that. I don't know what the technical like features called, but basically like the handshake that like on HDMI where like devices can like you could have your Chromecast or your Google Home like turn your TV on and off. Like mine doesn't have that. Right. So I have to manually turn my TV on and switch inputs. But if you have a TV that is capable of that, which is pretty much like any TV in like the last like handful of years, you press the center button on the Stadia controller, it'll turn the TV on, it'll switch to the input, and it'll get you to the menu screen. And the notion of being able to do that and then just jump into like I'm probably gonna like I was bummed I never played Mortal Kombat 11 story mode because it's a lot of fun. Are
you gonna finish it on Stadia? Are you gonna play through?
I think so. I think it's my plan. It's like I ended up playing like 2.5 hours of it, and it's like I might as well just like do the whole thing here. And I was having a really good time, and it looked gorgeous, and like it was also like really neat to see like a fucking super high res like. I love my Switch, but I am not going to sit and pretend that like that's the version of The Witcher 3 I want to play.
Right, sure,
it is not.
Sure.
Like it's cool that they made it work on there. That shit looks like garbage. Like it's garbage. Like that is like cool that it made it there. Like I respect to Witcher 3 for running on the Switch. Like I'm glad that people are going to play that. They don't have any other way. But like let's not pretend to ourselves that like that's how we want to play that game. And so the notion that this will never happen, but if there was like a Stadia, like, can I get a Stadia app on Switch where like I could like I could have like a best in class controller and then like streaming that around my house or somewhere else, like that's the dream.
Microsoft
and Cyberpunk.
Make it happen. Microsoft, Nintendo.
Give me the app. Give me the Xbox app on there, baby.
Get the xCloud, Xbox shit that they're doing. Load that shit on. Microsoft's all about services now, baby. You know what I mean? I'm saying, imagine that E3 presentation.
If I could play Gears 5 on my Switch, like
yeah.
So and that's where like playing Stadia is like it. I'm so less interested.
You're not sold on Stadia, but you're sold on cloud gaming. Like you're sold on this being a thing that could fit into our lives in the future.
Absolutely, absolutely. With all the compromises that go with that, like I think, like towards the end of the piece, I point out like there's lots of problems here. Like people are using the companies are using the carrot of convenience to take power away from consumers, right? Like you don't own these games. Now, granted, of course. Even games you buy at the store on some like technical legal level of a license yada 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 digital yada yada, but like you have more control. We've ceded that over time to convenience, and Stadia, which is different than like Xbox offering you a game that you can optionally stream over the cloud. That's a different level of compromise than Stadia, which just says that like you have no access, no rights to a local copy of that game. And so I agree all of that is a problem, especially because we don't have a government that has any interest in like clamping down on that or conserving those rights as like this convenience expands. But convenience always wins, right? That's why people go to piracy. It's why people like, streaming services. Like, convenience wins at the end of the day. And like in the windows where Stadia worked, I saw a future where that convenience will win for a lot of people. Again, like, it's not Stadia, but yeah, it's an Xbox app on a Switch where I can actually play Witcher 3. Or, as I've long posited, I think Stadia's true launch is going to happen sort of like next spring, and I think they're going to hang their hat a lot on Cyberpunk, because I think that game is going to look pretty rough on base level Xboxes and PS4s, run okay on a PS4 Pro, and run like better on an Xbox One X. But I think that game is going to disappoint on consoles in a way that, look, if you could just like spin it up and play on a high-end PC, and like you're basically renting a high-end PC for like the month or two that you play that game, like that's a pretty compelling idea. Yeah. And one that I could see myself being convinced and other people being potentially convinced by.
Let's take a break. We come back. We can talk about some other stuff. I know, Rob, you've been playing some Afterparty, and Kato, I know you're deep into Pokemon Sword of the Sword and Shield duo. So let's take a quick break, come back, talk some more about some video games. All right, we are back. Patrick, it sounds like the reviews are in. And
yeah.
Stadia. In the time we took that break, for real, reviews dropped, it sounds like.
Yeah, the embargo went up, and all the early press is going up. This will be the last bit of Stadia, so we can talk about something else. But I was genuinely surprised they decided to send this early to press, because of how broken it was, because of how clearly they were fixing things at the last second, even with reviewers, like on a Friday night, late Friday night, being like, hey, here's a code for Red Dead Redemption 2. And then on Saturday, like, here's what the pricing is. It just seemed like, if it's going to be early access, like, just go. Like, if I was in, I'm glad, look, hey, I'm all for transparency. I'm glad I got to play it and give people a heads up of what to expect. If I was on their marketing team, I don't know that I would have said, screw the press and just let it go to launch, and we'll figure it out from there, because the through line seems to be, exactly what I said, of like, hit a button and it works. Okay, now what? And that seems to be the conclusion a lot of people have drawn. Yeah. So,
those reviews are out there. People can go read your piece, go read other pieces, can see footage for themselves. I hope that they do that before they spend any money. How's everything going, Rob and Kato? Who wants to dive in first? You know what, Rob? Let's start with you, because I have not put any time. I put a little time into Pokemon. I put no time into Afterparty, and it feels like Afterparty landed without much fanfare, like compared to Oxenfree, the game by the same studio, Night School Studios.
Yeah, and I think we talked a bit about this last year. Oxenfree was one of those games I finally got around to via Game Pass, right? It's one of those things where you're just not sure what you want to play on a weekend. You're like, I remember that sounding interesting. And it was one of those perfect, like, lazy Sunday, just play through the whole game. And I was really, really impressed. And then a couple months later, on somebody's suggestion, after I was really high on Oxenfree, somebody was like, you should check out the Mr. Robot game that Night School made for mobile. Which was another really interesting work of almost like interactive fiction. It was sort of a mobile narrative game, and both of those games I think really played to they sort of showcase what Night School's strength is, right? Which is, in a lot of ways, they are making character and dialogue driven games that are mostly about characters hanging out and bouncing off each other. And everything else is kind of secondary to that. Afterparty, I played a little bit of it at PAX, and it didn't quite click with me there a few months back. And now that I've played the entire thing, The muted reception this game got sort of made more sense to me because honestly, I found it unfucking bearable. For the first like 2-3, it's not that long a game either. So when I say like I hated the first 2-3 hours of the game, I'm saying I basically hated half of it.
Right.
And then it started to claw its way back in the last act as some of its themes became a little more apparent. But to give you the quick premise, Afterparty opens on 2 characters, Milo and Lola, who find themselves in hell. And they have no recollection of how they died or how they ended up there. They're just in hell. And where this gets a little bit, immediately begins to give off kind of twee vibes because it is a vision of hell where it's just a cool party where everyone just wants to hang out and drink. And there's gags about like what sort of punishments people get, but really hell is just a bar crawl. It's just sort of a long night in a college town. Okay. And that is the vision of hell that this game has. And the story that Milo and Lola are told early is that there is a loophole in the laws governing hell that if you win a drinking game against Satan, you get to leave and you go back to your life in the mortal realm. And so your 2 characters embark on a one crazy night type journey across hell as they attempt to do the chain of favors that will allow them to challenge Satan to this drinking contest at the end of the game and win their lives back. And the thing that really frustrated me here is it's where I realized that I don't think Night School's in charge of its voice or tone as much as I've previously thought. So if you remember Oxenfree, all the characters put on a lot of affect. There is a lot of, there's a lot of like sarcastic redirection. There's a lot of self-referential humor. There's a lot of really try-hard irony. And it works in Oxenfree because I think 2 things. One, Oxenfree is about teenagers hanging out. And teenagers do that shit all the time, right? Like basically adolescence is performance. And Oxenfree's tone tended to work well with that. And the other thing that Oxenfree did very well is, even from the earliest, it made clear that there was some real shit underneath the surface of all those interactions.
Yeah, the affect was there as a sort of, almost as a sort of like translation mechanism. It was like, okay, let's get all of these people are affecting a certain personality because being in that affective mode is protective, but also because it's like a shared language. And what's underneath what's underneath that affect is something that they don't want to discuss necessarily. They are not comfortable or don't have the tool set, the sort of like social tool set as teenagers to approach directly between each other or more directly between each other. And that basically worked for me. But, you know, I think I'm a little cooler on Oxenfree than you are, but I think that read is 100% where I'm at with that game.
And I think it worked out okay in the Mr. Robot game because your primary interlocutor in that game is, the sister, in Mr. Robot.
It's been years since I only watched the first season of Mr. Robot, and I cannot pull.
But in the first season, before things get extremely real, in Mr. Robot, some of the hacker crew have a similar sort of like hacker affect, very ironic, very detached, and affecting like a sort of a cool detachment. Mm-hmm. And again, that played well with the way Night School tends to write. Afterparty is nonstop that affect, but never gets around to the real shit. It never gets around to implying there's anything beyond these beyond this affect. It's very much like that. It's like a script that was written by someone whose only encounter with like script writing was reading the screenplay for Juno.
Yeah. Which was already part of
and-
my beef with Oxenfree, was despite seeing that it developed at a certain point, it was still, and I'm someone who, like, when Juno dropped, I was still young enough that all of that appealed to me. And
that twee music was just like, okay, let's go.
Great soundtrack. I was, the reason that I can, like, say, oh yeah, there is something underneath this, I was absolutely that adolescent, like, deep affect, constantly in that mode, either hyper, solemn and depressed and serious, or very twee and, like, trying to be charming by dropping references, or by, doing basically word games with people constantly. You know what I mean? Like, there's
what was the Zach Braff one? That was the
right.
Juno,
Garden State, of course. Yeah,
Garden State.
absolutely.
Love that soundtrack.
Right.
Love
See,
that soundtrack. That movie did not age. I love that movie in the moment, and then, like, grew up, looked at it again, and like,
right.
Let's just hold on to the soundtrack and get rid of the movie.
I know these sins because these sins are mine. Like, I mean, the other thing for me, Rob, the other big question for me is, like, it feels like the stakes in this game are maybe different, or not the stakes, but there is hell exists in this world, and that means that there is a perspective at play where the affect could become it should shake the affect. Do you know what I mean? The world shouldn't carry the tone of the characters with it if the game understands that the characters are putting on a persona, if that makes sense.
Yeah, very much so. But this game's version of hell is very much like the cosmology of this game.
Yeah,
is very much like someone read the plot synopsis for His Dark Materials and, like, put on a really intense vocal fry the entire time.
Wow.
And, like, those are the stakes. Like,
so you're basically saying the hell
we're in hell.
You're saying,
I guess that sucks.
You're saying that the version of hell in this game is the version the characters of this game would have come up with.
Yeah. It's just, so it's not even that bad. It's like, oh, we want to get back to our lives. And this is the thing. I think the frustrating thing about this, you can see traces of it in Oxenfree. As this game begins to get a little bit real, there are traces of, like, if I thought any studio were going to pull out something like making some sort of relationship drama like Before Midnight or Mickey and Nikki, or like, I think it would be Night School, because they really do handle just characters talking endlessly and just sort of going through scenes and just, like, just the way conversations skitter and dart back and forth. But here, it never gets around to, like, I played through the entire game. I have no sense of who Milo and Lola are. Like, I really don't.
Leads,
and the
I'm
game
guessing?
even, pardon?
Those are the leads. Those are the main characters okay.
Yeah, and this game has, like, all these voice actors, right? Janita Gavankar is playing Lola. Ashley Birch is sort of the cab driver that's shepherding you around hell. So, like, you know all the voices here, and, like, it's just an all-star, like, they're pros reading these lines, but there's not much there. It's a lot of good actors handling material that just is kind of weightless. And they even sort of set up this problem in that early on, why can't I remember my death? Well, when you go to hell, you don't remember your death, and you actually don't remember much about your life. But then the entire drama that's sort of set up here in the opening is Lola and Milo are best friends and best friends forever, but their relationship might be deeply unhealthy and toxic. They're at this crossroads. They just graduated college. Are they actually friends? Are they just codependent? Do they love each other but also hate each other that way that, like, codependent, like, close friends can begin to feel, like, trapped and, like, find friendships become cloying by the time you're 20 if they've lasted throughout your formation into an adult? The game implies that it's going to get into that. But I played through the entire game, and even when the big reveals happen, like, there was a big scene in my playthrough, and this can all go different ways. So, like, there's a lot of different outcomes these relationships can have. I ended up with a scene where Lola sort of admitted to Milo that she wasn't sure if their relationship was that healthy ever. And maybe they shouldn't be friends anymore. Like, they love each other, but maybe they just need to not be in each other's lives. If they make it out of this, like, it could be their time as pals has passed. And that would have been a really great moment if I'd had any sort of sense of, like, why that relationship mattered. What were the stakes?
Right.
Like, instead, the entire thing is, if we make it back to the land of the living, which is a totally meaningless concept here because they might as well be in Bloomington. And if they make it back, maybe their relationship needs to change. Don't care. There's a weightlessness there. What begins to salvage it in the third act, sorry, I'm burying the lead here. The big mechanical innovation here, the big mechanical change is that it's college town. Everywhere you go, everything's happening in bars. In Oxenfree, there are always those dialogue options that you had to like think fast and figure out how you would want to react in the conversation. Sometimes it worked well. Sometimes it sort of felt like your character would just speak into the void and the scene would play out. Here, depending on what you are drinking, a different option might appear. And
what's the Kirkland
so
option?
if you have a... Pardon?
Get out.
What's the
You're
Kirkland?
not welcome in hell.
What's the Kirkland option? You're not welcome.
Excuse me, do you not think they're only serving Kirkland in hell?
The Kirkland option, my new memoir.
Yeah.
Yeah, so... Matt
That'd be more like my political thriller, like my Tom Clancy ripoff, the Kirkland, option.
option.
Yeah. So the conceit here is that different drinks affect you different ways. It's sort of like the mythology around tequila, but here it's like totally different personality shit opens up to you. So you can have the liquid courage thing. Your character just comes like out with it, just very from the shoulder. There was one funny bit where this worked well, where I had a drink that gave you the affect of a rich asshole. And I was sort of playing a character trying to sort of not get found out in a disguise. And so seeing the characters play out like, well, actually, I don't work. I just, analyze the markets. And, it was funny seeing these characters sort of lapse into that. But two things. If you have a weird relationship with alcohol, it's a weird conceit.
Yeah.
And second of all, it's just not that interesting. For the most part, it doesn't matter what flavor you're injecting into these conversations. It doesn't. It's not relevant at all to most of the exchanges you have. But then here's the twist. I should maybe. Oh, fuck it.
So do you want to spoilers is what you're saying?
Yeah, I don't know.
We should have a conversation.
Because I raised a couple
weeks. I'm happy. I would like to hear it, but jump ahead by a few minutes. Kata will leave a timestamp in the description if you want to like jump ahead. So okay, go ahead.
So as I was saying, this game might seem a little weird if you have a weird relationship with alcohol, or if someone in your family has had a weird relationship with alcohol. Like, the conceit here is strange, and I did have one and. To do these favors, to win these challenges, usually I have to win a really boring, mini game based around a drinking game, and it requires getting drunk with these characters. You can refuse to drink with a number of these characters, and the game is very quick to be like, "Hey, no pressure, it's all good. Like, we don't have to do that." So it's not like a game where you are compelled to play act in most cases, having to just get like shit faced with people. But I'm not sure you can do a straight edge run of Afterparty right now. There seemed to be some places where it was kind of built in. But in the third act, the game reveals that the real drama, the real conflict here, is that Satan, played by Dave Fennoy, who's a voice actor you've heard everywhere. He's Lee in Walking Dead. But you will hear Satan. It's a great performance, and you immediately know that voice. Satan is an alcoholic, and the third act of the game is about confronting the reason he's like, "Hey, let's do this drinking contest is great," is because Satan is deeply depressed and is seriously abusing alcohol. And that becomes sort of the main focus of the third act. And this stuff isn't bad. This is the funny thing. You spent hours and hours with Lola and Milo, and I was ready to walk those fuckers into the lake of lava. Like, fuck those kids. But Satan and his demon family, seeing them be like, man, you're not okay, was affecting. Like, watching him, like, having everything that he was doing reframed as, like, this is a guy who is in serious pain.
Right.
His coping mechanisms have fully gotten away from him.
Yeah.
And he is looking for more excuses and more rationales to indulge in that behavior more dramatically without raising questions to others, or more importantly to himself, to avoid facing what is happening. And that stuff worked pretty well. It's not brilliant.
You're still seeing that stuff from Lola and Milo's perspective. You're not like,
oh, dude, you're just like, it's hilarious. The third act is like, boom, it's intervention time. You show up for the drinking contest. And the whole night you had the sense that like some of the people you're working with, like there's another agenda, and you think it's like there's going to be a coup against the throne of hell. But actually it's a family intervention.
That's really interesting.
And your characters are like, should we be here for this? And it's kind of funny, but the answer is no.
Right.
Like the answer is no. You're too complete random.
Right. You thought you were Hamlet, but you were Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. Like, you're not supposed to be here at all. This is not your fucking story.
Right. And yet you are still pivotal to it.
Right, of course.
And so, but the other thing that worked for me is the game. People have their own viewpoints about this stuff. If you've dealt with alcoholism in your family or in your own life, like all those stories are a little bit different. They're not exactly the same. The thing I liked about this portrayal of like what's going on with Satan is that it's not, you can't reduce it to, oh, dude's an alcoholic. Like the problem is just the alcohol. No, behind that is deeper problems. I'm not even sure that like him stopping drinking is really going to address the real issues.
My guy is
like
still
when
Satan,
he begins to
right, like
and you know, this is a game that very much wants you to know it went through freshman literature. Like it's read Paradise Lost. Mm-hmm. It's read John Donne.
Right.
It will quote this stuff constantly and then identify it for you immediately. But the position it takes is Satan's very much a guy still like basically dealing with parental rejection for a mistake that he was too young to understand that he was making. And it is irrevocable, right? Like he fucked up as a teenager basically. And his punishment is to be sent to hell forever. And that's kind of the stakes you're dealing with is, you know, why was I treated this way? Why did this happen to me? And that's not a problem. Like that sort of rejection in the game's framing, him not drinking anymore is not going to solve that. Drinking is not helping, but like is being driven by something. And I did appreciate the fact that like there's a tendency sometimes in stories of addiction to reduce things to being as simple as this substance, this activity is the problem. And it's like, no, you can stop doing that and the pain remains real. Mm-hmm. Your life still makes you feel like shit. So how do we solve that problem?
Yeah, what is the proactive or the kind of like, the proactive solution to addressing those things, building in other coping mechanisms that are healthier, getting together like healthy processes that you guide your day by, etc. Yeah, and also whatever wounds, you don't necessarily heal those wounds or those broken relationships. And people who judged you that judgment may remain, and you have to figure out a way to live with that stuff and like rearrange your life such that or think about the wounds you can heal and mend, the relationships you can mend, and think about creating a life that does not necessarily rely on mending those relationships to still be healthy and positive, because you never know if you'll have access again, you know?
Yeah, and I appreciated the game leaving that in place, and I appreciate the game didn't go to a complete like And then Satan got sober and happily ever after. Like it didn't do that. But to me, it's a major fucking problem that like for about half this game's length, none of these themes were really in play. It was all just characters being glib and quipping at each other, and they weren't very funny. That's the other thing. It's very much like rapid fire dialogue, but not witty dialogue. Mm-hmm. And then the real stakes emerge, and they have nothing to do with your characters. And I don't know, man. Third act is too late to reveal what the story is actually about, and then have it basically be tangential to the story you've been telling. Yeah. Like
it feels like they had like this the third act early and then worked backwards, but didn't have a good way to get there. And also maybe just took a little too much of their what people liked about Oxenfree and turned the dial up way too much. Like part of what was charming about Oxenfree was that it was very understated, and also that it wasn't a high concept story until later. Like the high concept part of it like went as it went along, whereas like this one starts high concept and only like introduces more, like introducing Satan in that way. And it just feels like maybe they lost a little bit of like what actually people responded to in Oxenfree and had the wrong takeaways on like what the sophomore effort of their studio should be.
Mm-hmm. And low key, like a thing that did matter to me is that they changed art styles. Like if you could compare screenshots of this to Oxenfree, like Oxenfree sort of had a animated, almost like pen and ink vibe to just the way it was colored, like a lot of pastel colors, a lot of muted tones, a lot of flattened a lot of depth in the frame. So that it was very much like characters on sort of flattened 2D backgrounds. And this is very much a 3D game, tons of light, tons of, the models are way more, they're much more clearly 3D models this time around. And the game is working much harder to sell you on a sort of graphical realism around the idea of a bar strip at night. And it just is kind of charmless. You know, you look at Afterparty next to screenshots of some of, the places you go wandering in Oxenfree. Oxenfree is kind of a pretty game that leaves you in that nice meditative state and like lets you focus in on the characters. Afterparty is kind of grating in the way that like a night out at the bars becomes grating after a while, right? Where you're just like, I'm sorry, can we go somewhere where we can hear each other talk for a minute? Can we go somewhere where your face isn't like lit by red neon? So I don't know. It just, the game, I enjoyed the third act. But overall, like this was a game that I really like. It remained just interesting enough that I stuck with it. But on balance, I wish I hadn't played it at all.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a bummer. There was a moment there where you're like, 4 or 5 hours long. Is that about right? And an interesting third act. Maybe I'll give it a go. But given that takeaway, it's hard to think about putting time into it, especially because, like, again, if it is just that same rapid fire Oxenfree vibe of like, and again, I think Oxenfree landed more than it missed for me, but where instead of jokes, what you have is speed, or like instead of like heavy hits, you just have rapid fire. Like there's a degree to which the one method of comedy is just like hit them over and over and over again until the pace and cadence like weakens someone's comic like barrier, and there's just that is a style of comedy, and it can work. Like I think even great shows and comedians can do this. I think like early 30 Rock is just like, it is just about rapid fire, and like there are good jokes in there, and when they hit harder because you've been weakened by that stuff, but you need those good jokes for that method to really work for me. Otherwise it's just gonna fall
early hours
flat.
Of this reminded me of Hudsucker.
Ooh, okay. Yeah. Pass.
Like which is divisive. Cohen movie, right? Like I hate it.
Yeah.
I hate the Hudsucker proxy because the writing pisses me off.
Mm-hmm.
Because Hudsucker always felt like their attempt to channel like His Girl Friday, and it fails.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you, Rob, for reporting in from the front lines of anime, like I said before.
And that's the latest from Game Pass.
Oh wait, it's on Game Pass. It's on Game Pass. Fuck it.
Yeah.
Listen, I don't spend money on it. Shit. Maybe I'll check it out.
Look at it.
Subscription
free.
services don't cost you anything.
Yeah, they're free. They're basically free, right?
Goes on your credit card bill. I never see
You know,
it.
honestly, if you treat, think of, you know what? Here's what would. Here's the pitch for Afterparty that works. Go see your friends play.
Right.
Ew.
That's
Right?
yeah.
Go see your friends play. Like you like your friends.
Yeah.
You want, you know, and it's important to support independent theater.
Babysitter
That's true.
called. They can't make it.
Shit. Damn. Yeah, I guess I got to stay home. Can't make.
You want to still? You
And
can
that's
still
all
go.
there is from
I
Game
can't go with
Pass.
you, but you can still
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Thanks.
go. And if you don't go, they're gonna be mad at us. Someone has
Someone
to go.
has to go. Yeah. Says I got a
Rob
kid.
Blank.
You got to, say that. Patrick. Say that.
Yeah, I got a better excuse than you, buddy.
Fuck. I've been in this scenario for sure.
Quick. I'm sorry.
Yep.
Go see your friends play reminded me of just detective fiction recommendation. Austin, you specifically.
Yeah.
When the Sacred Gin Mill closes. Which is also a story
about
about alcoholism now that I think
the
of it.
sacred. Yeah, I got it.
So it's from Lawrence Block's Good Phase.
Okay.
Because he had a very good phase as a detective fiction writer, and then he became a very mediocre one, I'd say. But that one is very much about like weird resentments that build up between friends and like creative communities in New York in like the 70s.
Cool.
It's a really good like
down.
period piece.
Cool. Wrote it down.
Nice.
Awesome. There's no segue here.
No.
Kato.
Pokemon.
Sword and Shield.
Sword and Shield.
So last week we went into like what
Yeah.
the controversy was around it and the fan like negative reaction
Yeah.
from a loud subset of the fans. I will say like one of the reactions I saw out there in response to our conversation was from fans of the series who were skeptical or even negative on Sword and Shield in the lead up, but who felt like their voices were being buried under the Dexiteers.
Right.
And like, hey, but I have real concerns.
Yeah.
What about that and this and this? Like, forget about the national deck stuff or whatever. Blah 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 blah. So I'm curious for you as someone who is a long-term fan. You've never missed a mainline entry.
I never played Sapphire.
Okay,
3rd Gen.
but that is it.
That's it.
Everything else you've
Everything
touched at
else.
least. Or
Every
probably
single
played a
other-
lot of.
Well, yeah.
So how is it? How are you feeling about it so
far? Good. The early. So here's. So, Pokemon has always. It has its formula of what you're going to do in the story. That's never really changed.
Sure.
There's generally 8 of a thing that you have to go do before you fight like 4 people that are very strong.
Right. So those 8 things are like what we think of as gyms normally.
Yes, yeah. In the original games, gyms and like that kind of stayed the same for a few iterations, and then like they kind of broke that last time with calling it different things, and you actually did other things that you would normally not do in a gym, where you would like, go find a Pokemon in a cave or something, and like have to like run around and do like a puzzle, and then there was some Pokemon fight.
Yeah.
But there was still like
You
a
do 8
series of those,
and then there's an Elite Four
there's the Elite
equivalent.
Four.
There's like a final, and there's a final boss after that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's like, so like that's like the main like that's your goal of what you're doing, and then interwoven through that is usually some sort of story that this kind of is the part that changes the most from game to game, of some team of some sort that is out to do for nefarious reasons, generally somehow tied up into the legendary Pokemon of that game. So like
They want to capture
they want
this
to they want to use that to
god.
like reset the timeline or something. Yeah, shit. Like the reasons have become they like once God came into it, like the reasons have gotten more and more wild each time.
Let me
The
tell you,
last
that's
one
true
was like
for.
Wait, was that a joke?
no. There's
no,
a God
that's-
Pokemon. The God Pokemon
There's at
is
least
a Pokemon.
one god Pokemon, depending on my understanding.
Wait, so there's a Pokemon about like finding and killing God.
Not
Yeah,
killing God, right?
No, capturing God and using God's powers in order to control the world. So like, rule the world. Like classic villain
shit.
shit.
Yeah. Is that Arceus? Is
Yes,
Arceus,
Arceus is
god?
the god.
Okay.
So yeah, though there's totally a Pokemon cosmology
Yeah.
going on here. They hit God kind of early in the series. It's weird. We've had to kind of spread out more than like go up. But
I
whatever.
got you.
So the real thing that has changed so far in this is kind of the presentation, like the visual structure of the game. Obviously, this is the first one on a mainline console, so there are, all these games having coming out on portable devices means that they've been mostly limited in how they can present things. Due to the power of the consoles and stuff like that. So the big jump is like, oh wow, there's like cutscenes now in a Pokemon game. That's not a thing that they've done before. Oh, there's like actions intercut into battle sequences that are, story stuff that like they couldn't do with their old engines and things like that are like not super surprising in the wider genre of like RPGs, but like for the Pokemon games, like, oh, this is a new like level of Pokemon like storytelling that we haven't been able to have before because they've always been on portable devices. So that stuff has been neat. The story so far is still like you're setting out. The like twist in this one about the gyms is that in the Galar region, which is basically the UK, I think the UK flipped upside down because London's in the south, right?
Of the UK?
Yeah. Okay, so like at the top of the map in Pokemon is like the London equivalent.
Okay.
And at the bottom is where you start, and you're wearing like things that I would associate as Scottish.
Okay.
Like hats and things, like certain plaids and things that I'm like, I think this is supposed to be Scotland.
Right.
So Sword and Shield is about the ascent of the Stuarts?
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Well,
Okay.
Here's the thing is like I'm still pretty early on, and the reason I'm still pretty early on is that normally in these Pokemon games, between the first 2 or 3 towns, there's usually very little variance in Pokemon. You've got your rat, you've got your bird, you've got a couple bugs. Maybe you throw in something that is a fighting type in there sometimes, or some rocks, things like that. And it doesn't really open up until like 3 towns in, and then you start seeing the weird stuff that have different, like more exciting, like elemental stuff. In this game, like from the jump, there's like a wide variety of Pokemon in just between the first 2 towns. So I'm spending a lot more time there, like trying to make sure I've gotten everything from that area, and and I think part of that is because like part of the whole national dex thing was that the dex for this game is actually big because they're all in it from the jump. It's not just what can be included technically in the game files. It's like the Pokemon that they've included are all actually in the game that you can catch.
Right. Okay.
Before it was like
you could import stuff after you beat the game.
Yeah.
You could import your Charizard or whatever.
Yeah.
But Charizard wasn't out in the world most of the time, or previous Pokemon.
Yeah. And also that's one of the things that they kept and seen and like have actually made a little better from Let's Go Pikachu. That one introduced where normally original series before Let's Go was you would walk in tall grass and you would have a random encounter based on percentage chance of how long you were running around in the grass. In Let's Go, they just put Pokemon models into the grass, so you would see what Pokemon is there. You would go touch it and you would start I'm trying to think. There's other RPGs have done this where you see the enemies in the world, right, and you can walk up to them. In this one, they've continued that, but they've added like different temperaments for the Pokemon. Some of them you have to sneak up on. Some of them will chase you, which can get kind of terrifying because the big what's the word I'm looking for? Not mechanic, but like the big thing that they're selling with this on this game is an area called the Wild Area, which is the first like 3D, like you can move the camera in 3D area in a Pokemon game, where also it is comprised of like sub areas that all have their like different
is this different than the
biomes?
The roots
Huh?
So explain this to me, because when I saw that stuff, it was like, oh, this is just the routes from between areas in past games, except
Those
it's
still
3D.
exist.
So those are separate than the Wildlands.
Yeah.
You can't control the camera in 3 dimensions on a route.
No.
Interesting.
Like the rest
Okay.
of the game is like, yeah, you can't control the camera at all. It might as well be isometric. It's not isometric exactly, but it kind of feels
I
that
also
way.
said Wildlands. That's not what they're called. What are
No,
they called?
the wild area.
Area.
It's just called the wild area.
Pokemon Wildlands.
Oh my god.
Cocaine
Oh god,
Mountain.
it's John Berthal.
John Berthal's here, and he
He's
sniped my Pikachu.
Shit.
Fuck.
Oh god. What's interesting though about the Wildlands is that you can find some shit that is super high level in there. And like, so I was like level, like my Pokemon were around level 8 or 9, and I run into an Onix. I'm like, shit, yeah, I'm gonna catch this Onix.
Nah.
It was level 30. I was like, what the fuck?
Wow, that Onyx is about to fuck you up.
Yeah, I had to run away, and I couldn't. Normally, what happens is that based on I forget the exact formula, but based on the level differential of a wild Pokemon to your Pokemon, it's harder to escape from a battle.
Wow.
To the point where they've always had this item called the Pokédoll, which is just like a get out of jail free doll, free card, and I like got one super early on, and I was like, "That's weird. What? Like these are useless. Nobody ever uses these because in normal Pokemon games, you're generally of the level of the route that you're like walking into,
Right. Yeah.
But I got like 5 before I hit the Wildlands. I'm like, something's going on here, and then I hit that Onix. It's like, I see.
Yeah.
I'm going to need these because sometimes I will run into a Pokemon that is just going to be grossly over leveled, and I'm like gonna have to run away. So that's like interesting. Like there's new dynamic there where like sometimes you can even try to find higher level. Like I found one that was like in the 20s, and it was like, you know what? Actually, my
If you
level
burn
11
through,
with the right match type ups, I can get through it and like get a ton of XP, and like everyone leveled all in that one battle. It was-
share is on by default now, right?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
And did you capture that 20?
No.
Oh.
That's the thing that the gym badges control now, is that it basically sets the like upper max of what you can actually catch.
Okay.
So I could only fight it for XP, but it was a good chunk of XP. And
Yeah, that's
like
so great.
it was like
And probably a more interesting fight than
Yes.
like 13, grinding matches against people or against Pokemon the same level as you.
right, exactly. Which is good because if you've kind of run through all the trainers in an area, it can get kind of hard to keep leveling things because you get less XP against Pokemon your same
Right.
level. So
How often are you going to, like, are these wild areas basically optional in that way where they're like, hey, while you're here, you can go over here and do this wild area,
No.
or you have to cross them to get to the next town or the next route?
yeah, from the second town after that, like there's like a train system, and technically that train goes to the third town, but it breaks down and you gotta walk through the wild area.
Cool.
Like it's like fully integrated into the world. It actually
this
kind
is
of
like-
like hugs the like central town in that area, and you can get to like other towns further ahead and things like that. Like it's a
Cool.
pretty sizable chunk of the map.
And there's like there's like hills and stuff. And
Yeah, there's like and different biomes.
Nice.
And of course, depending on the weather and the biome, you will find different Pokemon, and the weather has different effects on your battles.
Oh, awesome.
Like
So if it's icy or snowy, then
yeah,
like,
if it's ice, like this is the weather stuff that's been in the game for a while, but in the world, like you'll
like
see it
seeing
icing,
yeah.
and then like you'll find ice Pokemon, and ice Pokemon will a lot of them have this thing where they get healed when it's hailing, just like every turn, and other Pokemon that aren't ice Pokemon get hurt because they're getting hit
Right.
by fucking hailstones.
Sure.
Things like that.
That sounds cool, actually. Like, to me, that sounds like it's getting towards something. Like, the dream was always like a big open world
Yeah.
Pokemon game in the way that we
Absolutely.
think about open world games. I guess I'm curious, is there stuff out there? Are there secrets to find? Are there collectibles? Are there
Yes.
okay, cool.
There's totally like and this is also that sort of thing where like there'll just be things on the ground in Pokemon games that you used to have an item to like you would like do this little dousing mini game basically to kind of circle in on them. This is more like because you're exploring a 3D space. It's like finding nooks and crannies. Then you'll see like a little shiny spot on the ground. You go pick it up. It's an item.
Yeah.
There's also these raid battles. Pokemon has raids now.
Sure.
I mean, and like raids is like a bit much, but it's basically a 4-player cooperative battle against one of the gigantic
Like
Pokemon,
the Dynamax ones.
Pokemon.
Cool.
That you like. There's a bunch of glowing. They call them Dynamax dens, where it's like a hole in the ground that has like if there's a Pokemon in there, it has a light that's spewing out of it.
That's what I call the room where I have like my big TV. I'm like, get rid of man cave, bring in the Dynamax den. Gender neutral, please.
Yeah. And those are neat. Normally you can like, excuse me, you can just link up with people that are like near you.
Mm-hmm.
But if not, it gives you some AI.
Nice.
So Dynamaxing changes the Pokemon that you make big's moveset to like big moves, and a lot of those also have some added on side effects that will help your team, things like that.
Cool.
So
that's like set the arena on fire, or like that style of stuff, or like do a big AoE heal, or not AoE, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, totally.
So here's like, this is the thing that I keep thinking about with this game is last week when we were talking about this stuff, one of the points that Patrick made and that I like sort of pushed back on and was convinced by was like, these are basically games for kids, was the case that Patrick made.
Mm-hmm.
And I still do agree with that. But one of the things that I did want to emphasize that we didn't actually get into last time or talk about was like, one of the ways in which it is less for young kids and more for like teens with lots of time on their hands is the complexity and depth at high level play, where like historically there's an entire set of systems that playing through the game from start to back you don't need to engage with at all.
Yeah.
But if you want to talk about EVs, and I don't mean EV the Pokemon, I mean like
effort
values. That's what it is, effort values.
Yeah.
And like leveling up your Pokemon to be as competitive as possible, and like what's the best build for each Pokemon in terms of moves. That has all of that depth that like even beyond a lot of JRPGs have, almost to the degree that it's a turn-based fighting game.
Right.
With interactions, and you're thinking through that style of like really interesting tactical dilemma.
Totally.
And I'm curious. So one, that is part of why I think there is an older demographic for this game. Like, I mean, I'm not even talking about my friends who play this game because they're nostalgic for Pokemon for the reasons that we talked about.
Yeah.
100%. But I guess some of my friends take it as one step further and are interested in that stuff.
Right.
And they'll do the Nuzlocke run, or they'll do the stuff that is like engaging with it in a slightly more difficult way. But then there is an entire scene of people who really engage with those mechanics the way, like even deeper than like Rob and I would engage with XCOM. You know what I mean? Like they're really, really, really in that thing.
Right.
And so I'm curious if you've hit that stuff at all, or what you think this game does for that audience who cares deeply about those things in a way that, most of us on this call have not engaged with it ever in that way.
I'm not far enough yet to like really have hit that stuff, but I do know, and I've seen. So one of the things that the raid battles give you is like a ton of like items, and there's a bunch of new things that they haven't had before. Things like XP candies, or things that give. There's these candies that used to exist also, but they were severely limited in how many times you could use them. That would raise Pokemon's EVs, which are a hidden value, basically that. What's the word I'm looking for? They changed the growth rate for a specific stat.
Right. So
your attack EV, like the max attack EV is like 252, which means like if you're at 252 every time that Pokemon levels up, it's gaining like +4 instead of the +1 that it would gain otherwise.
And those are normally hidden, and you only can figure them out, like reverse figure it out traditionally by leveling up and be like, well, I'm getting a bunch of fucking shit levels where this Pokemon's attack is only growing by a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to catch a different one or breed a different one.
Yeah.
to get one that's
mostly,
like a better.
mostly breeding is
Okay.
is a big thing because you can there's like which Ivy's inherent values, which is like the base stats.
Okay.
Which ones each parent gives to the child.
Gotcha.
And also there's another thing called egg moves, which is a move that Pokemon can learn only from its I believe it's the mother gives the egg move to the child. So there's ways to get
Kato. Of course, the mother gives the egg move to the child. We weren't born yesterday. If we were, we would still have our egg moves included.
Well, that's the thing. An interesting thing that they've done, and I don't think these are egg moves. This just reminded me of it. Is that it randomly in the
It's such a funny phrase. Okay.
randomly in like the overworld, after spending some time in an area, you'll see a Pokemon that's like glowing for some reason.
Yeah.
It turns out that they have like super moves that like usually the range of like if you're in like let's say level 10 ranges, that was the area where I first saw this. Most of the moves are of they have like their power is like between 20 to 60 power is like a normal range for like your average move. Mm-hmm. These moves are like 130 power and are like normally like end game shit and like on a tiny ass Pokemon, which is very funny. But
True Gohan hours.
Yeah, right. Yeah. That hidden shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like what they've done this time around is that you can change those EVs. You can max them out through these candies, which you couldn't do before, and you can, which means that like once you like breed the right Pokemon and you get the right like inherent values, you can just like max it out without having to do the training the like very specific way where each type of Pokemon, when you I defeat a Pikachu, the Pokemon I defeated it with that gets XP from it gets a speed EV. So now you can, which is
you can game all this stuff is basically like, but in a much more.
It's a much more streamlined situation.
Cool.
There's also,
and I'm sure that the hardcore audience will find a way to break it and find another unintended, like invisible way that this is working to like set RNG and blah blah blah. You know what I mean? Like that is what happens in the long term. But it's cool that some of that stuff has been made more transparent in terms of the design stuff that I've read
from the go, and like also certain things that were like kept like. Each Pokemon has four move slots, right? Mm-hmm. And so like you level up, you get new moves, you replace old moves. Sometimes though you want to go back, and there was always this mechanic where if you found a like pretty rare item and you go to one specific person, they could like make a Pokemon relearn a move that you told it to forget.
Okay.
In this game, that's just like in every Poke Center, there's a guy there that's like, you can do that whenever now.
Yeah.
Like it's much more just like, like we're not gonna like weirdly, like there was no reason for that to really be so obscured and difficult to do
from the jump.
Like it was just like, just let us make the Pokemon the way that we want to. Like, yeah, I fucked up and like probably should have kept that move from before. Yeah. I thought this one was gonna be better, but I didn't know.
Well, how could you know?
Right. Well, eventually, like you just.
But if
know
you're
what
a new player, you have no fucking idea that like some normal attack is actually really useful to have.
Yeah.
That like when I was 15 or 13, probably younger than that when the first Pokemon. When did the first Pokemon come out? I was in junior high, I think. Pokemon Red. Yeah, so when I was 11 or whatever,
I was definitely in middle school because I was sitting next to people and getting that link cable.
Yeah, absolutely was
on the way to school.
Yeah, 96. Yeah, 96. Or U.S. release date was 98. U.S. release date was 98. So still though, I was 12 or 13. I was 13 when this came out, and like I didn't fucking know that some starter moves are actually super good. Yeah. I'm going to get the thing where my Pokemon can shoot fire out of its mouth, and I'm going to get 4 of those, and that means that, like, actually I fucked myself over.
That's the fucking, now you have 4 fire moves that, and in any situation where a fire move isn't going to work, you're totally screwed.
I'm totally screwed. Totally, exactly. And so that is, like, one of those things that's, like, enable the player to rectify that once they've internalized with how those systems work.
And a lot of the, like, complaints are that these are changes that Game Freak should have been making ages ago.
So wait, the complaints about the changes hitting now are...
It's just like that's mixed up in that, right?
I
Is
see.
that they don't make changes very quickly, and there are people like the community's been asking for certain of these changes that seem kind of just like weirdly, like no, this is the system because it has to be hard to get the perfect Pokemon or something. Like I don't know, like it always seemed weirdly gatekeepy almost. Like this, you have to put in extra effort if you want to do this thing.
Yeah.
Which seemed like this is like quality of life stuff that should just be available to players.
Are there any other things, like thinking about the other stuff that people were frustrated by? Again, XP share being on, or the moves being removed. Like but those moves removed now, how do you feel? Because you mentioned that was about balance, but like
Yeah.
I mean, I
haven't even noticed any specific ones. I have noticed though that I'm noticing more moves that I've never seen before. It's like that's the other thing, is that they replaced a bunch of stuff, or they added a bunch of new things. And so far the newer moves seem to be doing more interesting things.
Cool.
Like there's more the one small example is like on one of the starting birds that you can find. There's a basic stat buff that you can do to yourself, but it also had this other move that got boosted as well based on the amount of stat buffs you've done.
Yeah.
So the way stat buffs work is like there's basically a little bar like that has a 1 through 5 for each stat, and you can only boost up to 5 times. And so it was like not just the boost itself to the base stat, but the fact that you've done it 5 times was important for this move. Where normally in a regular, sometimes doing that stat once or twice wasn't going to be worth it ever. Like those sort of stat boosting things you kind of get rid of in the early game, because later there's ones that will boost like 3 stages, and like that's a worthwhile use of a turn. Now there's like more interactions where it's like, oh, I'm gonna stop and use some of these stat boosting or stat changing moves that in the early game of Pokemon you would never fuck around with, because it was always like it's always worth it to take an extra tackle for that turn rather than try to boost and you end up using that turn like to just do more damage anyways. So like there have been some things that have been like, oh, I'm actually considering stat moves in early Pokemon, which is wild.
Yeah,
Never
I
thought
love
they'd
it when a
make that.
JRPG actually makes me think of things that aren't just do the most damage at a specific turn.
Right.
It's what good JRPGs do anyway, so shout out to that. The one thing that I did see that I think is fucked is the sound options thing.
That's
did y'all
so
see that?
fucked.
That like
I don't that's one of those things that they do where it's like this should just be how the game is designed.
Yeah, so the sound options for like changing the sound of background music and like sound effects and some other stuff is all like locked up in an item you get from a random fucking NPC.
Yeah.
It's not just in the options to begin with, and just put it in, just again, like in an accessibility sense, just include anything that has to do with the way the game is presented. Please just put it in the options from the jump.
Yeah.
Out of your, like, just
wild. And it's just it's a totally random dude in the third town too that
right, so it's hours in, presumably.
It's like a 2, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Wild. All right, well, thank you for checking in. I've wrapped around to being kind of excited. I'm gonna be honest. What I'm gonna do this week is watch a bunch of Star Wars, Clone Wars, and play some Pokemon.
Hell yeah. That sounds great.
Fucking deserve it. God damn it.
I'm excited to play more of it.
The second episode of Mandalorian is super good.
I need to watch it. I'm gonna try to watch that tonight.
It's great. I did a complete 180 on that show. I thought the pilot, I tried to rationalize that I liked it.
I was waiting.
No,
I
thought it sucked.
I haven't seen either of those episodes.
The second episode
yet.
is a revelation.
I
good.
felt the fact that they were doing a Wednesday drop and a Friday drop with The Mandalorian made me go like, you know what? Let me wait until both of those episodes are out, and then I'll watch both of those together, and that will be a more holistic view of what that show is.
Without getting into any spoilers, but there's a thing that happens at the end of the first episode that I'm sure at least like people maybe are tangentially aware of. There's a thing that happens at the end, and I hated it. I was like ready to just like throw the show out and be like, this is cheap. I hate it. It's just it came across as such a gimmick. In a way that I just was like, oh, if this is what the show is going to be, then let's. And the second episode justifies it entirely in a way that I don't want to say anything more except that I'm
excited.
I've adored the second episode.
Okay.
Adored.
That's our waypoints. A quick waypoint here from Patrick.
Right.
Mandalorian on Disney Plus. Rob, Kato, either you have a waypoint, a quick shout out for something? I feel like I didn't give time to let people prepare for this, but we stumbled into it, so let's just do it.
Folks, people need to watch Stumptown. Jesus Christ.
Okay. Do you want to elaborate a little bit?
So a subplot sometimes on Waypoint is that a couple of us are enthusiasts for private eye fiction, detective fiction.
Yes.
Stumptown.
I love the generalization you made there, so as not to be specific as to how many.
Yeah. Who knows? Just it is a comfortable space for the detective fiction enthusiast.
Yeah.
Who can say? Maybe Patrick. I'm sure Patrick has his passions for he might be a Ross McDonald guy.
Right.
Might be a Chandler guy. I don't know.
Big fan of the Dane Curse.
Pry with Patrick.
Yeah. I got you.
Yeah, I respect his privacy. Kato's probably there. Just shotgunning like A is for Alibi.
Oh,
hell yeah,
definitely.
Just Ada. How far did she get?
She didn't finish?
I think she passed away, but I'm not sure she...
Someone picked it up.
Yeah, I think they probably did.
Right?
Hit Z.
Yeah. So the Sue Grafton
Sue
novels.
Grafton, yeah.
No. Oh, my whole heart just dropped. Got to Y.
Oh.
Y is for yesterday. That's so close.
Oh my God.
Never going to get to Z is for zebra.
The zebra, what done it?
That was the big twist. That was the big twist in the Kinsey Mahoney novels. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. So Stumptown is a show that's like right there on this knife's edge between turning into what I would call like your best example of an FX style detective or crime show, in the vein of like Justified, or if anyone liked Terriers out there, which was a great, possibly the best private eye series ever put on television, starring Donna Logue.
Mm-hmm.
This is starring Kobe Smulders. She is.
I've always liked, even going back to How I Met Your Mother. I was like, you know what? She might be better than How I Met Your Mother.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's like one of those star players playing on a farm team.
Yeah.
Where you're like, oh, okay. Like you're gonna get this team to a championship and then you're gonna like move on.
You're gonna get out of here. Yeah.
But here, she's got a fucking team around her. She is a classic down on their luck, hard drinking, disaster zone of a life, private eye. Also a army vet nursing a really bad case of PTSD and taking care of her brother. And is also bi, that doesn't play a huge part. There was one episode where we introduced an ex-girlfriend, but by and large, we know she is bi. But most of the relationships do focus on heterosexual relationships. She has, and also is extremely. I don't know what's the way to put it. I don't know that poly is quite the right way to put it, but the show is very non-judgmental about the.
Like about her
sequence
life.
of one night stands she has. Yeah, Michael Ealy plays
hell
the...
yeah. I'm in.
Yeah.
I'm in.
Yeah. Michael Ealy.
Two people I have huge crushes on her in this show. Okay, I got you. Colby's both of them.
He is the Portland detective that is her friend on the force.
Okay.
Cameron Manheim is his captain.
This is a good cast.
And then Jake Johnson is her ex-con pal, a safecracker who runs the bar she hangs out.
What do I... Oh, Jake Johnson from New Girl.
New Girl.
Nick from New Girl.
What?
Is now a safecracker. Love it. Great. You know what? Honestly, that's just a continuation of New Girl in my belief. That's how I believe it.
It's a spinoff.
So... believe me, it is very much like a.
I'm gonna fucking watch the show. Fine.
It's very much like Nick Miller ex-con.
That's so good.
Yeah,
Love
it's really fucking good.
Also, people should go. People real quick on that Michael Ealy tip. People should go back and somehow try to watch
Almost Human.
Almost Human. It's better.
Which I bought on Amazon and
better.
have been rewatching. It's better than I remember.
It's all right, man. It's all right for a cyberpunk
Was that
cop
the Fox
drama.
show?
That was the Fox
Yeah,
cyberpunk.
The J.J. Abrams produced.
with what's his face? Who's the actual
Judge Dredd. Mr. Frowny Grumpy Man.
Carl Urban. Yeah.
Carl Urban.
Yeah, that shows
Carlin's
up.
great. I love Carl Urban.
Oh, he and Michael Ealy had the
They have
best
such
chemistry.
good chemistry.
Like, oh my god.
You know what? The world wasn't ready.
Just-
the world wasn't ready for Almost Human. That's all.
Like their chemistry was
Almost
like
ready.
Charles Grodin and De Niro in Midnight Run.
yeah.
Just
The
like two
only-
characters just got under each other's skin, but like drove each other fucking crazy.
The only time anyone
What?
has ever compared Almost Human to Midnight Run. God. Anyway, love it. You're right.
So, all right. So, but here's the rub.
All right.
Stumptown is a network TV detective series.
Yeah.
And so it feels like a series that is like divided down the middle, where like you will have the A plot where it is, okay, yeah, we're getting to the private eye shit. This is some like detective stuff. There's like criminal gangs offing people. There's secrets from our past. There's the regrets and the things we can't fix. And then the B plot is often either just some cutesy sentimental bullshit where it's like, oh, we have to help the little guy in this case. It's like your friendly neighborhood PI, which I'm not against the idea of the PI being like sort of a Ronin providing justice in a society that does not.
Yeah.
But there is, you know what I mean? Like there's a way
Yeah.
that network cop shows tend to present this stuff in a way that's a little saccharine and unearned. And then she's got another ex-con friend, I want to say, who is a Mexican chef whose dream is to create like an haute cuisine Mexican restaurant. And that is often the B plot, is his sort of comedic intersections with their stories as he chases his dream of, you know, he's there as comic relief. He's also there to lighten the mood and provide another place to hang out. And it's just, those are parts that don't fit with the first part of the show. And so like Stumptown is also kind of riveting because I watch it and I'm like, man, which personality is going to win out in this? Because it doesn't feel sustainable. It feels like at some point
It will have to, like,
someone's going to have to get killed, or it's going to be a show where it's like, no, everyone's safe. We all go home and like meet up at the bar at the end of the episode.
yeah, which will deflate some of it, right? It has to decide if it is Veronica Mars or if it is like Hannibal, right?
Yeah.
Cool. And there's two shows I like, but different shows. Briefly, I'll shout out a great article that went up on The Correspondent last week. Called The New .com Bubble is Here. It's called Online Advertising. Really great long read on the state of online advertising, the kind of foundational fib it's based around, which is that it is fundamentally different than television advertising because it's data driven, because you'll know if it works or not, blah, blah, blah. Really fascinating. Opens with a really great anecdote about a TV ad sales guy who's like, we don't want to know if it works. The truth underlying all of advertising is it's impossible to tell if it will be or could be or was truly effective or not. The numbers go up, but it's hard to ever really know. And seeing online advertising need to come to terms with some of that, especially as not only online advertising's like commercial effectiveness, but its political effectiveness has been such a big conversation point in the last few years. And having to kind of confront the fact that we know something is happening when advertisements hit us, something is happening when media, comes into our brains, but also it's hard to track down exactly what it is and how do you walk that line between like demanding transparency and expecting like a causal relationship to arise and holding people accountable for what they do while simultaneously recognizing that like you shouldn't ever trust an advertising company that tells you exactly how many people it can convert into believers or buyers. Really interesting read. Again, that piece is up on thecorrespondent.com, and it is called The New .com Bubble is Here. It's called Online Advertising. How did you have a waypoint? Go. What's up, Patrick?
No, don't. I'll save it. I don't want to in my technology shit post and go after Kato.
Kato.
I mean, anime is on my mind, so I'm gonna once again plug my favorite anime of recent years, Mob Psycho 100.
Which you were pitching me the other day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I still have not gotten around to because I'm a bad anime fan. Fake anime boy.
It's great. It's about a middle schooler named Mob. That's not his real name. Shit, I forgot what his real name. That's a nickname he gets. Who has psychic powers and but also is very what's the word I'm looking for here? The word that was coming up was introspective, but it's less. It's less that under repressed, but above completely introspective in the way where like he does like kind of repress some emotions, and it's like about him dealing with his level of like engagement in social situations, and the fact that he's also like it's a shonen where he's like he could like one shot any it's
like
kind of it's the same.
I mean,
it's the same creator,
right?
Yeah.
One Punch Man.
One Punch Man. But kind of a different tact because that was like One Punch Man. He's like disaffected, but
Right.
and has all this power. This is more about a young man kind of like dealing with not wanting to hurt people and control and also confidence. And a lot of really like deep introspection on emotion and being emotionally intelligent comes out through that show. There is a caveat for anyone who is watching it. There's kind of an uncomfortable character in the second season that does a tropey thing around like a trans characterization, but like they're in that one episode and they leave, and it's like it's one of those things where the trope is played for laughs in the way that trope shows up in anime, but not like that's not any of the joke, right? Like it's like the presentation and not what the character does or anything. But apart from that one kind of blemish, I feel like I can wholeheartedly endorse and recommend that show.
Cool. Patrick, what is your ship post? Your technology ship post?
Can you just look in the podcast channel, please?
Who are these people? What is this? What is this thing around their backs? And their
Sony's baffling wearable speaker head.
Shut the fuck up.
Coming to the speakers head to the US for
That's a
$300.
sausage.
Want the convenience of portable tunes but hate headphones and earbuds? Sony has a solution for you in its quote immersible wearable speaker, which is perhaps the company's most aptly named piece of audio kit.
Sausage
This is one
link.
article over it.
It's it's like you're wearing a sausage link around your neck.
Why?
Could you eat them?
Just like
This
quick
song
snack.
is delicious. Yeah. If this was built into a cool cyberpunk jacket, and only I could hear it somehow, I'd be down.
That's not how sound works, though.
You know?
This is one of those things. Is there like an accessibility thing this thing is low-key
Yes, good
solving that
call.
we're just not aware of?
Yeah, that is often the case with these things, right? Is like I look at something and go like, that's stupid. And then like thousands of people, millions of people are like, this makes my life easier. But because the audience
that may be true, but it does not appear to be the pitch of the device.
It never is. It never is. That's,
bad tech could end up being great tech by happenstance. So if that is true, I would actually be curious to know, like, if someone sees the picture, it doesn't even have Bluetooth.
But then it would also have to be a good
wire.
solution for whatever that issue is, right? Like,
Yeah.
because this certainly looks like, what if your soundbar could strangle you?
it does look exactly like that. Yeah.
What if it could massage at the same time?
Yeah, that's what that looks
That
like.
sounds great.
What
I
if
need
it-
a neck massage so
what if
bad,
it got
y'all. I have
warm?
a headache.
Massaged you
Yeah.
and played high quality audio.
This is what I'm saying. Yeah. I want the neck
Now-
massage.
now we're in play.
I'm all the way in. $300. A little high, I guess, but
Is this surround
It's
or
cold.
stereo?
You wake up a little achy.
oh, love it.
Just throw on your tunes.
Yeah.
I like the implication here that this is somehow connected to a PS4.
No, he's just that person's just listening to music while playing
Okay,
PS4.
gotcha.
They are. It is a Sony thing, so maybe it is.
Maybe.
I will. Well, no, because you just said it wasn't wireless. So I guess it could be plugged in. I don't know. Anyway, thank you.
It has to be plugged in.
Thank you
Yeah.
for these
welcome.
neck speakers. add those to the old holiday shopping list.
Okay, but here's the other thing. So one of these shots shows a couple sitting next to each other, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
What? And they're both wearing them.
Yeah. So how does that not become an issue of like interference? Not in terms of signal, but just in terms of each other's listening experience.
Yeah, yeah.
How is he not leaning over to her and being like, "Could you turn your fucking neck speaker down because I'm hearing an echo and I'm losing my goddamn mind."
Maybe they're.
Is it hyper directed in a way that we can't?
That's what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying.
I feel like maybe I don't know enough about directed
can't.
audio, but I feel like it often requires something to bounce and like.
It can be intensely directed. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I feel
wanna
like it
try 'em.
requires something more.
Hey,
dome
they
like.
twist.
Send us some of these.
Twist?
Yeah, this isn't a well, the ones that
we all
I'm
need
looking
one.
at.
Sony,
Hook us
Let's
up.
go.
I'm ready. I'm ready to have a neck speaker. I need to
Turn
know.
that shit post into a content
A
post.
Nika?
Yeah. Yeah.
just imagine, like, Patrick, you and your wife could like sneak into the home theater at night
Okay, maybe-
and like have your little neck speakers on low volume,
Love
The
it.
Sony Nika.
not waking anybody up.
No one's awake. Including you. You've fallen asleep in this.
Including you fall asleep because
I'm
the neck
actually
speaker
using
is so warm and
tones.
reassuring.
Listen, 4.
I'm gonna end up using this just to play white noise.
Gadget Flow has given the Sony SRS whatever neck speakers a 4.9 out of 5. That's a high rating. Easy wearing, compact and light. 7 hours of play.
Neckers or Neakers?
What?
Neck speakers. So
Neakers.
Neakers.
No,
Neakers?
neckers. No, neither. I don't trust white people enough. Specs. No, those are glasses.
that's already a thing.
What's like a? I don't know. We gotta end this
Snatch.
podcast. We gotta get out.
What's that? Is that just like a neck? Yeah, it's just a neck pillow.
Yeah, but that's not called anything.
No, I know. That's what I was trying to think of if there was a name for that.
Neck pillow.
A
Neck speaker.
Nilla?
Nope. No, we gotta give last. I mean, does anybody? Soundwear companion speaker says Bose. That's what they call this. That's the
Collar
one that bends.
blaster.
A collar blaster.
Collar blasters?
It's like a sound blaster, but for your collar.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
A collar blaster. If you use a collar blaster at home, whether for accessibility reasons or reasons we can't, just because they're cool, you let me know. We've turned around on this product 180 degrees from, and I think, you know what? To some degree, that's almost always true. Our ironic detachment is often a cover for our deep interest, which we're repressing for social norms. We got to be more like Patrick, who's willing to game anywhere. You know what I mean? Patrick's hanging out in Starbucks playing Mortal Kombat with a controller in his hands, and in the future, you could get a collar blaster on. That's the whole fucking picture. That's the whole. That's what confidence looks like. Boom. To live like Patrick.
I'm pretty sure I saw that extra in an episode of Almost Human.
Almost human, yeah, 100%. God, they had to.
Oh shit! So I was watching Almost Human, and there's this episode where somebody is live streaming murders.
Yeah.
And they're like,
Classic
"Holy
episode,
shit,
Almost
we
Human.
gotta stop! Like, we gotta stop this guy. He's almost up to 80 viewers."
Yeah.
And they're like, "Sick bastard! 80 people are watching this shit." And he's, "I'm just doing it for the views, man. I just love getting viewers."
It's so funny.
Jesus.
Oh, what show is all right?
They look like they would have airbags.
They do. They should also have airbags for
Right.
safety. Yeah, agreed.
Like those scarves.
Yeah,
They exist.
yeah,
Like a Hans device, but like connected to your neck speaker.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Totally.
love it.
Perfect. All right, we're gonna
You
stop.
can ride them on your bike. You ride your
After
bike
this-
while
after-
wearing neck speakers.
After this entire segment of promoting various goods, capitalist goods and services that you can buy or support, I only have one thing to say to people. I have to do a whole fucking spiel still. Austin,
Yeah.
Walker, _Cotto_appears,
Yep.
at Patrick Klepek, at Rob Zachney, at Waypoint. You already know what it is. Shout outs to Bowen letting us use the track Miss You. Waypoint.zone/BOEN.
Rate us.
Review us. Gaming@vice.com for questions. Fuck capitalism. Go home. Peace.
Release the Snyder Cut.
Release the
Capitalism
Cinder
killed
Cut.
almost human.
Yeah.
Well, it's great. The USB is a wonderful technology. It makes it easy to plug in and unplug lots of different things. But the connection itself doesn't actually tolerate being plugged in and unplugged routinely without slowly losing function. And that feels like the arc I'm on now.
Talking about your body or USB?
You know, the pins ain't what they used to be, Patrick.
Sounds like you're back.
Sore point.
But
Figure we come in on Stadia, we take a break. I'm gonna take a sneeze for a second. Actually, let's get here. Here's what I think maybe what we do is we come in on. I haven't played shit. I had a busy weekend. Anime. I was at an anime convention. I was overwhelmed by an anime convention. I met Mr. Gundam. We'll get there, and well, whatever. And then Kata, you can hit those anime games real quick.
Yeah.
And then we do Stadia. Then we take.
And then I'll be like, speaking of top 10 anime betrayals, did anyone see that bear game last night? And then Patrick will be like, oh shit.
Stop.
God.
We all lost this weekend.
Yeah, we all
don't even
fucking
know-
lost.
at least-
I don't
at least-
even want to talk
At least
about.
Austin has a quarterback.
At least, yeah. Well, yeah, I do have a quarterback. Y'all should just.
I'd take.
y'all,
You know what? You want to send him over?
No, I
We'll
know
take him.
exactly. That's the thing is I don't want.
You can
to.
have Mitch.
But the thing is like when the end of that game failed. Well, I kind of blame Aguilar more than Wentz, but
That was good. You know what? In terms of like
yes,
meme potential.
Yes, in terms of-
I mean, I realize bad for your team, but
It
like
is.
extremely funny.
extremely funny. Unlike Aguilar, it's so good.
Someone find that guy. Has anyone talked to that dude again?
Someone needs to, I swear. But no, like that pass was all right, and Wentz played all right the rest of that game. I just football. Also,
Too
fuck
injured.
the
The team's
Patriots, just in
Too
general.
injured. Yes. Yeah. Don't worry. Lamar Jackson's coming, baby.
Oh, God.
The only thing that could derail that is him taking an injury that permanently alters his athletic profile. But with his style of football, what are the odds?
What are the odds?
Yeah, it's not like
Definitely.
RG3 is his backup.
God. Did y'all keep up with the cap stuff? The like last second change of where the practice was on Saturday?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
A little bit. Like there was some maneuvering and like
Yes.
legal waiver stuff that I was struggling to follow.
The gist of it is that the Kaepernick camp was not happy that the NFL said only the NFL would have rights to the film and they would deliver the film to scouts who were not attending and to teams because that would mean that there was a chance the NFL would like not doctor the footage but only show bad throws or like not give all of the footage. They wanted to be in control of the footage. They wanted to be involved in the footage. There was a lot of just
Unlisted YouTube video, washed up athlete takes pratfalls during practice.
Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah, 100% that. And there was pushback on that. And so they ended up needing to move it from some Atlanta Falcons facility to like a high school.
It was a high school, like 60 miles away.
Yeah, and it's like only a few of the scouts made that trip from the Falcons facility.
There was also
out.
like some waiver stuff that was like related to like if he was blackballed a second time. Like it was like the waiver was like fairly standard for like a player in a normal circumstance,
Right.
But was insulting for a player in which the league has already given untold tens millions to like settle a dispute over blackballing that is like increasingly apparent that
also
it did happen.
There was weird shit around his receivers who they were going to send to like, which was to say they did not say who they were going to. Eventually, he just flew people out under his own expense or under his company's expense or whatever. What a fucking anyway. Football. We can't even talk about the Browns.
He also
Steelers, oh my god.
Jesus Christ.
All the sympathy in the world to Cap, but then like the and I don't blame him for this line, but like the line he had like as he was saying like goodbye to like the scouts was like tell your owners to stop being cowards. It was like you're right, Cap, you're right, and you are owed to say that. I don't know that's going to help your case though.
He's right though.
He is right. He is right. And he still wins even if he doesn't get back in and continues to just be an eyesore.
Yeah.
But you do get the sense that the guy wants to play and he would be...
Yeah.
He would be better than our quarterback.
I was going to say, the Bears need a quarterback. So many teams need a quarterback.
Well,
he sucked his last 2 seasons. Or not sucked, but he wasn't particularly good. He was way worse than he was at his highs in 49. But like if he was playing last night for the Bears, we win that game hand over fist.
Yep.
Anyway.
What were you going to say, Rob?
Cap.
No, I was talking with Bob Kaleko last night, and he was like, you guys should sign Cap. And I was like, here's the other thing that traps Cap, though, is he's now such a symbol for both sides that, like, here comes Cap to play for the Chicago Bears. Literally a week later, the Chicago police get caught doing something because there's always something to catch the Chicago police doing. And now he's just gotten his comeback. And immediately people are like, well, why aren't you speaking up about this? Why aren't you protesting more vociferously? And now he's like in this Kobayashi Maru. If he goes all the way down that road,
he has to go for it. He has to.
Exactly. Yeah. But then absolutely it turns into a circus and he literally becomes the exact type of like distraction that the NFL was always like, hair on fire about. It's such a like, he needs to, where's the wokest place we can send him?
Nowhere.
Google, where are the police woke? Oh no.
Fiction.
Fucking curse.
Yeah. God. All right. We should do a podcast. We didn't clap already, did we?
No.
Okay. I opened and closed time that is. It's back open. Y'all ready?
Yeah.
Let's do 55. Okay.